Chapter 1975. At first, Portia didn't want Zephyra to become Qin Zhao's personal assistant. But after Qin Zhao left, she suddenly realized that it was pretty good. Zephyra worked really hard. She wouldn't complain at all. She could just lie down and rest. Zephyra was more professional than her. In the Bright Moon Mountain manner, he could do anything. "Miss Portia, you better get up and work," the butler system reminded her. "Your boss, my master, is on his way back." Portia jumped up like a startled bird. She had a nervous reaction to Qin Zhao now. She would react when she heard his name. But Portia quickly realized that Qin Zhao was still on his way. Why did she react so much? Portia slumped back onto the sofa. Comfortable? Comfortable? Portia jumped up from the sofa. Qin Zhao put his hands in his pockets and smiled at Portia. "Looks like you always work like this when I'm not here." "Really?" "No, it's not like that. Zephyra finished everything today, so I took a break." "Really? Why is Zephyra still working? Is this finished?" "Boss, didn't the butler say you were still on your way?" "Liar, he's a liar." "Miss Portia, when I said master was on his way, I meant he was on his way in. Maybe I should change my expression." "There's no need to change it. I think this expression suits my interests very well." Boss. Zephyra came over. "Boss, I'll go prepare lunch now." "You don't have to be in charge of lunch." "Zephyra, boss has a magical chef who never shows his face. As long as we don't enter the kitchen, lunch and dinner will be prepared automatically and then disappear." Portia had learned her lesson and knew that she couldn't find Qin Zhao. Once, she sensed that someone was cooking in the kitchen, so she ran into the kitchen. But she didn't see anyone. There was indeed something cooking in the pot. Then Qin Zhao forced her into the kitchen and she took over his work. Since then, Portia had completely lost interest in it. She didn't disturb the mysterious chef anymore. Zephyra looked at Qin Zhao curiously. "Portia, have you heard the story of the conch girl?" "Never heard of it." "A long time ago, a young man picked up a field snail and kept it in his basin. The field snail became the field snail lady. Every time the young man went out to farm, the field snail lady would help him with the housework, cooking and washing." Portia rolled her eyes. "Boss, are you trying to tell me that you have a conch girl in your house? You can understand it that way." "As if I'd believe you." Although Zephyra didn't believe in conch girls either. However, she knew that it was definitely a supernatural force. After all, Qin Zhao was a powerful spiritualist. So it wouldn't be strange for some kind of supernatural power to appear in his house. Just as Portia had said, Qin Zhao had them go to the kitchen to bring out the dishes at midnight. Revra found that there were holes less than 60 centimeters in the walls of the house, including the kitchen. These holes should be for some very small creatures to enter and exit. They should be some short, psychic supernatural creatures. Portia had been working here for more than 2 months and hadn't found a single clue. In less than half a day, Revra had already figured out what was going on. Of course, this also had to do with the unequal information they had. After lunch, Portia and Revra sent the dishes to the kitchen and could finally rest. Qin Zhao forced all the kids to take a nap. This was Qin Zhao's strict requirement and couldn't be disobeyed. Some kids tried to resist. Then, Qin Zhao would give them a Banshee's charm combo and let them sleep until the end of time. As time went by, no kid refused to take a nap anymore. Revra and Portia chatted in the yard, enjoying the sunlight while enjoying the sea breeze. Qin Zhao took some drinks, beer, and snacks and sat beside them. "Revra, what happened to your original job?" "I quit." "Won't your company cause trouble for you?" "I completed a certain amount of work," Revra said calmly. "No one will." "Boss, Revra, are you guys trying to imply something?" Revra used to be an assassin in an assassin organization. She got tired of her life and decided to give up on it. She wants to live like a normal person. Revra also came into contact with the secrets of the assassin organization, so she's worried that the organization will send assassins to kill her. Is that right? "Yes." Qin Zhao nodded. "Am I right?" Portia jumped up, but when she saw Qin Zhao and Revra's mocking smiles, she realized that she'd been tricked again. Just then, Qin Zhao's phone rang again. Qin Zhao returned to his room to answer. "Yang, how did it go?" The Dragon King agreed, but he asked for Tugu's heart as evidence. Don't tell me you want it yourself, you old fox? We have to have the most basic trust between us. Do you know that it hurts me to hear you say that? Stop bullshitting. Did you get the manual for the Yellow Jade Divine Residence? No. Do you think Qingqing Mountain's library is a library? Even if it's a library, you need a library card. You said it's easy. Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi called. Every time, it was just bullshitting and trash talking. Both sides were still enjoying it. By the way, Chen Zhao, why don't we work together to take care of those heaven-piercing problems? I'll contact them and you'll do the work. We'll split the benefits. You'll get as far away from me as you can get. Don't be unhappy. My connections are all worth tens of thousands of gold coins. I can't be bothered with you. Call me after you know how to use the Yellow Jade Divine Residence. Don't call me randomly. International calls are really expensive. By the way, Chen Zhao, you really don't want to come back? Go back for what? After all, China is the most supernatural region. There are more masters. If you come back, you'll be able to meet more spiritualists. The atmosphere here will be different. I like the feeling of a monkey being king when there's no tiger in the mountain. I can do whatever I want in America. Why would I go to a place full of competition? Chen Zhao's words revealed his lack of ambition. Then it's good to come back and participate in some small activities. After all, whether it's the East or the West, constitutionalism emphasizes communication. Everyone takes what they need and complements each other's weaknesses. I realize that every time we talk, you'll ask me to come back. Are you thinking of some shady business again? Chapter 1976. You're talking about me as if I'm some big bad guy. You've done such a thing before. You tricked 2 dragons into coming to our country and almost killed them. You'll never be able to clear your name from this dark history. Yes, I've done such a thing before. But look at who they are. We're not that close. Don't call us brothers. I don't know you that well, and I really don't have any confidence in your character. You've hurt my heart. I thought we were friends despite the difference in age. Stop bullshitting. That Dragon King wants Tugu's heart? He doesn't want Melita's heart? It's Tugu who's competing with his son for the throne, not his wife. How can we give it to him? Don't worry. He'll think it's too easy if we're in such a hurry. What's there to be afraid of? If he dares to go back on his word, we'll just expose it and say that he sent people to kill Tugu. As long as he still has some dignity, he'll have to consider the consequences. You're no less shameless than me. Zhang Tianyi sighed. By the way, how strong is the Dragon King? Very powerful. I don't know the specifics. After all, he's lived for almost 3,000 years. How long can this old monster live? Not long. He'll die within 100 years. Otherwise, he wouldn't be looking for an heir. Zhang Tianyi said, and at his age, he basically doesn't dare to fight with others. Every time he fights, his lifespan will be shortened by a few years. Why is that? Will fighting reduce his lifespan? You were full of vigor at that age. Even if you fought with your life on the line every day, you could still recover quickly. However, people who have reached the limit of their lifespan have to use their own strength to sustain their lives, just like the 23rd generation. Normally, she should have died 5 years ago because she relied on her own strength to break through the limit of her lifespan. It's the same for the Dragon King. Old Zhang, you won't tell others that I have the stone, will you? Do you think I'm a gossiper? Don't forget, when you learned about the origin stone from me, you immediately told the 23rd generation about it. I'm old friends with the 23rd generation. I have nothing to do with the Dragon King. For the dragon race, they never had to worry about humans. They had always been the dominant party in their dealings with the humans. Humans only knew how to back down, and back down. Every single one of them is a nuclear bomb. Perhaps the humans had more nukes than their population. However, if humans were to use nuclear weapons, they would basically be harming the enemy while harming themselves. All the dragons had to do was hide in a human city. It was unknown whether or not the humans' nuclear bombs could kill the dragons, but the humans themselves would definitely be the first to suffer. Therefore, unless it was an all-out war, humans would definitely be at a disadvantage. At least, that was what Trish and Saint and thought in the past. But in that battle, they had personally witnessed that terrifying face. He laughed and killed all the dragons. Now, they were back in Los Angeles. After a few days, the two of them returned. Xing, those treasures will not disappear even if they are buried underground for a few years. There is no need to go back now. Cui Xin was very dissatisfied. In her opinion, it was too dangerous if that human found out. They didn't even have the chance to struggle. Deep in their hearts, they had already been branded with a deep fear by that human. If it wasn't necessary, they definitely wouldn't return here. But Sheng An's greed for the treasures won over his desires. Cui Xin also didn't want to see Xing An die here. At least, she had the world compass. If they encountered that man, they would only need to delay him for 3 minutes and they would be able to escape. The world compass was an extremely powerful divine artifact. Even if it couldn't be used anytime and anywhere, one couldn't deny its power. Moreover, it was just a part. It wasn't a real divine artifact. Cui Xin's goal was to complete the divine artifact, to achieve the final, perfect form. And before getting the diamond all from Xing, he couldn't die. Therefore, she had to accompany Xing An back to Los Angeles. Of course, they had made preparations before coming. They had thought of a way to fool the Dragon Slayer's monitoring device. They had even changed their appearance. Cui Xin and Xing An carefully returned to the manor. There were no changes in the manor. It was as if nothing had happened. After all, the battle had been in an alternate dimension, so it didn't affect the real world. Cui Xin and Xing An were still worried that Chen Zhao or the other Dragon Slayers had set up some device here. Therefore, they were even more careful. They observed outside the manor for half a day until the sun set. After confirming that there was no one in the manor, Xing An and Cui Xin entered. Xing An quickly entered the study and operated the mechanism on the wall. Only then did he open a secret passage in the wall. Just remove the wall. Why do you have to be so troublesome? Cui Xin said impatiently. The mechanisms here are all connected. So what? Could it be that your traps here can harm me? Or you? No. Then why are you wasting time? The mechanisms here can't hurt us, but they can destroy the treasures here. Cui Xin glanced at Xing An, dissatisfied. But Xing An didn't care at all. There was only his treasure in his heart. His passion and greed for treasures surpassed everything else. Wait for me here. Don't follow me for the rest of the way, Xing An said in the narrow secret passage. Scrooge, are you afraid that I'll steal your treasures? I'm only interested in the caltrop all, Cui Xin said unhappily. But Xing An was very firm. If Cui Xin questioned whether she wanted to follow him, Xing An might fight her. If they attracted the attention of that human, then both of them would be dead. Cui Xin didn't want to force Xing An too much. Xing An walked forward alone until he disappeared into the darkness. Xing An's treasures were hidden very well. He'd also set up a special barrier around them. If anyone tried to rob him of his treasures, the treasures would be directly sent into a different dimension. Xing An came to the treasure room. It was about 100 square meters, but there were large amounts of gold, silver, gems, and all kinds of art inside. Xing An let out a long sigh. His eyes became misty. Every time he saw his 400 years of accumulation, Xing An would sink into it. It had almost become his weakness. It was a desire that was crazier and greedier than others. When he faced the treasures, he had no way to resist. Chapter 1977. His head partially turned into a dragon, then he opened his mouth and began to suck. All the treasures were sucked into his mouth. His magic was to shrink, and not only himself, but other objects could also be shrunk. In fact, shrinking objects was much easier than shrinking oneself. Xing An quickly swept away all the treasures and collections here. All the treasures were hidden in one of his dragon teeth. Only then did Xing An walk out of the treasure room with satisfaction. Cui Xin was already impatient. When Xing An came out, Cui Xin didn't give him a good look. We can go now, Xing An said with satisfaction. When will you give it to me? Chui Xin didn't want to act with Xing'an. He was too unsafe, and with his greedy personality he would expose them sooner or later. So Chui Xin couldn't wait to escape from Xing'an's side. He was a time bomb, and they didn't even know when he would blow them to pieces. "I want you to take me to Treasure Island," Xing'an said. "Impossible, I will only tell you the location of Treasure Island, then you give me the caltrip cone, and we won't owe each other anything." "How do I know if the location you said is true or false?" "I don't believe you." Just as Chui Xin didn't trust and hate Xing'an, Xing'an didn't trust Chui Xin either. "I don't have to lie to you. Maybe you don't even know the location of Treasure Island, and you're lying to me." Xing'an's suspicions weren't superfluous. With Chui Xin's nature, she was likely to make up the location of Treasure Island for him. This was all possible. Chui Xin was annoyed. "Anyway, I won't go to Treasure Island again." "Why?" "Anyway, can't you just take me to Treasure Island and then come out?" "There is a big snake on Treasure Island, and my world compass was taken from it. If I return to Treasure Island, it will never let me leave so easily." "Can't you beat that big snake?" "If I say that big snake is Jormungandr, would you believe it?" Chui Xin's expression was extremely solemn. "You must be joking, that's just a legend." Xing'an's expression also changed slightly. "To humans we are also legends." Chui Xin looked at Saint and said, "But I really saw it. The head of that giant snake came out of the dark clouds. Its head was even bigger than my body. If it wasn't Jormungandr, I can't think of anyone else with such a huge body." In Norse mythology, Jormungandr, a monster that perished together with Thor, the god of thunder. One of the three gods of destruction born to the evil god Loki and the female giant Angrboda. The evil god Loki and the female giant Angrboda had 3 children together. The eldest was the demon wolf Fenrir, the youngest was the goddess of death, Hel, and the second was Jormungandr. Jormungandr and Thor could be said to be fated enemies. They had fought many times in their lives, and in the end, both of them perished together. Jormungandr's head and tail could circle the world, so it was also called the world snake, and it also symbolized eternity. Also, I saw an upside-down palace in the sky. I suspect that the palace is the Odin race's palace, Asgard. I still don't believe it. It's just a legend. Even the dragons couldn't confirm if the Odin race really existed or if it was just a legend. I don't care if you believe it or not. Anyway, I won't go back to Treasure Island and face that terrifying snake. You have the world compass. You can escape at any time. I stole the world compass from Jormungandr. Do you think it'll work on him? Chui Xin sneered. Chui Xin tried to explain, but Saint and was still firm. Both sides fell into a stalemate. Neither was willing to take a step back. To Chui Xin, Treasure Island was also a nightmare. It was the same as asking her to walk around Qin Zhao's house. Would Qin Zhao talk to her about life and ideals? He would probably only treat her as a trophy. Hang her head in front of his house. If that's the case, let's go our separate ways, Saint said. Chui Xin was furious. She criticized Saint. Are you breaking up with me? Breaking up? Not really. I just want to protect my interests. You're full of lies. I definitely won't believe a liar. Chui Xin took a deep breath and calmed herself down. Do you know where I got the information about Treasure Island? Come on. Make up a new lie. I got the information from my father, Chui Xin said. It's a nightmare that has tortured him his entire life. Saint sneered at Chui Xin. The patricide actually has the face to mention your father? I'm helping him escape, Chui Xin said coldly. Don't make patricide sound so noble. Forget it. I don't want to continue this topic. Chui Xin didn't want to talk about it either. Patricide wasn't an easy crime for her. After all, she'd received the title of the most evil dragon because of it. Even among the dragons, patricide was a huge crime. There's indeed no need for us to continue talking. You'll regret it. Chui Xin's cold eyes stared at Saint. Since I've already been charged with patricide, I don't mind being charged with killing my brother. You want to fight me? Are you sure you want to fight me here? Saint sneered at Chui Xin. He knew how afraid Chui Xin was of death and Qin Zhao. If they fought here, they would be too close to Qin Zhao. Chen Zhao would definitely notice the shockwaves from their battle. Cui Xin obviously wouldn't fight here. She just turned around and left silently. She was good at being cunning and sinister. These were all things she had learned from human beings. To achieve her goals, she could do even more outrageous things. Saint and just wanted to leave with his treasures and collections. The siblings parted ways just like that. They didn't get along, but they had a common thought. Even if they had to fight to the death, they couldn't do it in El-Thai. The consequences of making a move here were very serious. Saint and had to take human transportation. Cui Xin didn't need that. She used the world compass to leave. In the blink of an eye, Cui Xin had already left El-Thai. She appeared in an unfamiliar area. Cui Xin looked around, trying to figure out where she was. Strange. What city is this? Cui Xin muttered to herself. Miss, are you lost? Chapter 1978. Cui Xin turned to look beside her. It was a white-haired Asian old man with a goatee. The Asian old man was looking at him with a lecherous gaze. Cui Xin's expression darkened. She raised her hand to slap the old man. Of course, if this slap landed on her face, it wouldn't just be one slap. Junshan Daoist technique, borrowing the power of heaven and earth, freeze. Zhang Tianyi grinned. Little girl, did you want to kill me just now? Cui Xin's raised arm suddenly felt like it was filled with cement. She couldn't move at all. This made her realize that the old man in front of her wasn't as simple as he seemed. Cui Xin immediately turned to leave. But she soon realized that her feet also felt like they were filled with lead. After trying a few times, Cui Xin realized that she couldn't remove the freeze curse at all. She didn't expect to be so unlucky. She used a random teleportation and actually teleported to the side of an expert. Little girl, do you know that this is China? If you use magic casually here, you'll be spanked. Slap. You dare hit me? Cui Xin glared at Zhang Tianyi angrily. I'm hitting you. So what if you're a dragon? Zhang Tianyi hit her again. Looking at his face, he seemed to be enjoying it. You know I'm a dragon? With my fiery eyes, no matter what kind of monster you are, I can see you. Zhang Tianyi's eyes stared at Cui Xin's chest. Let go of me or I'll show my true form. Cui Xin didn't expect to be so unlucky. She'd long heard that China was the most active place in the supernatural world. In the past, she thought it was nothing special. Now, she truly believed that she could meet such a hidden expert on the streets. If she knew that the person in front of her was the world's #1 in the supernatural world, how would she feel? True form? Why don't you show me? Zhang Tianyi sneered at Cui Xin. If you want to be steamed, just show your true form. Ask your Dragon King if he dares to show his true form in China. How dare a little loach like you act so presumptuously in front of me? Although they were in the downtown area, Zhang Tianyi was confident that he could kill Cui Xin before she went berserk. Especially when Cui Xin was still under his spell. You dare kill me? My clan will definitely not let you off. Cui Xin threatened. Zhang Tianyi jumped up and slapped the back of Cui Xin's head. Aren't you going to let me go? Come on, won't you let me go? Come on. Zhang Tianyi was completely unconvinced by Cui Xin's threats. I'm over 100 years old, what haven't I seen? That's enough. I'm a member of the dragon race after all. Are you a space dragon? No, after the death of the last space dragon, there hasn't been a space dragon in the dragon clan for more than 1,000 years. If you are a space dragon, then the dragon clan would have already made a big fuss about it. But how can you suddenly appear here? Could it be some kind of magical treasure? Zhang Tianyi looked at Cui Xin up and down. Spatial magic? Or some kind of magic treasure or divine artifact? Cui Xin's heart tightened. Zhang Tianyi immediately smiled. It seems to be a spatial treasure. Zhang Tianyi snapped his fingers, and Cui Xin immediately felt the spell on her body being released. Come back to the mountain with me. Cui Xin was still standing in the same place, staring at Zhang Tianyi warily. Zhang Tianyi turned his head and looked at Cui Xin, who was standing still. You want to snatch my divine artifact? Zhang Tianyi laughed. I'm not interested in spatial divine artifacts. Why? Chui Xin didn't believe that there would be someone who wouldn't be tempted in the face of a divine artifact. Although I haven't used a spatial type divine artifact before, I have some understanding of it. The better the effect of a spatial divine artifact, the greater the side effects. This is the existence of karma. A spatial divine artifact can't be used to escape, because you can escape from your enemies, but you can't escape karma. You must have used a spatial divine artifact to escape recently, which is why you were teleported to me. What kind of logic is that? There are roughly 3 types of spatial divine artifacts. The first type is the small jump type, which is suitable for combat to improve one's mobility. The advantage is that it can cast spells quickly, but the disadvantage is that it consumes a lot of magic power. The second type is directional teleportation, which has no side effects. However, the disadvantage of this type of spatial divine artifact is that it takes a long time to prepare, and the one-time consumption of magic power can almost drain you dry. This type of spatial divine artifact is basically used as a means of transportation and is almost useless in battle. The third type is the spatial divine artifact that you are using now, which teleports randomly. The operating mechanism of your spatial divine artifact is very complicated. It doesn't consume magic power, but it will involve you in karma. There is a high chance that you will be teleported to someone who will have karma with you, perhaps your family or friends, or perhaps your enemies. How do you know that my spatial divine artifact teleports randomly? When you appeared on the street, you obviously didn't know where you were and had been standing on the street observing. Zhang Tianyi said, and with your level, you can't teleport without consumption, so it can only be the third type of random teleportation. And it can be said that you appeared in front of me, which can be said to be inevitable. I've used it a few times and nothing like this has happened before. Why is that? When you draw a line on a piece of white paper with your eyes covered, nothing will happen during the process. Then, when you draw the second line may pass through the mark left behind by the first line. When you draw the third line, the chances of touching the previous mark will increase, and the chances of the fourth line will be even greater. Over and over again, the chances of encountering it will increase. It's the same with the divine artifact in your hand. Nothing happened the first few times, which can only mean that your luck is good. But this time, you just happen to be teleported in front of me, which means that your luck is starting to change. You know so much about spatial divine artifacts. Is it because there are many spatial divine artifacts in this world? It's not a lot, but it's not a small number either. Our sect also has them, but very few people use them. The 3 types of spatial divine artifacts I mentioned all have their own limitations. Chui Xin's eyes sparkled as she looked at Zhang Tianyi. She was considering using the world compass again after its cooldown was over. I know what you're thinking. You want to try again, right? Could it be that you think I should just surrender? Zhang Tianyi smiled and stared at Chui Xin. If you want to teleport to the side of the person you fear the most the next time you teleport, you can give it a try. Do you know who I fear the most? Chapter 1979. Chui Xin's heart skipped a beat. She felt like she was suffering from a human phobia. This kind of mental illness really existed in the dragon race. They feared weak humans. The Qin Zhao she'd met before had already made her feel powerless. Now, this old human made her scalp go numb. Zhang Tianyi calculated with his fingers. The person I fear the most should also be from China, but he has the ability to kill dragons and tigers. The next time you meet him, it'll be your death. Zhang Tianyi's words made Chui Xin even more afraid. You're lying to me, right? Zhang Tianyi ignored Chui Xin's doubt and kept his fake expression. Also, I've calculated that you'll die in his hands in less than half a year. What should I do? What should I do? Chui Xin finally believed him. She knew that in China's supernatural world, prophecy spells had always been very powerful. Almost every spiritualist knew how to do some divination. Since Zhang Tianyi was so powerful, his prophecy spells must be very powerful too. Come to my mountain and live for 3 years. I guarantee that you'll be rid of all disasters and bad luck. You'll be happy and everything will go smoothly. Really? You don't have to believe me, but after you go up the mountain, I won't kill you or lock you up. You can come and go if you want, but don't go back up after you go down. Cui Xin's eyes sparkled. 3 years was just a blink of an eye for dragons. However, 3 years might be the best time to find and assemble that divine artifact. Can't it be shorter? Do you think this is a market where you can bargain? Cui Xin bit her lip and finally said, I'll go up with you, but if I find something wrong, I'll go down immediately. With Zephyra, Qinzhao's body and mind were different. Zephyra was more diligent, patient, and capable than Portia. She never complained about the dirty and tiring work at home. She always finished it silently. With Qinzhao's wicked mouth, he obviously wouldn't miss this opportunity. He'd belittle Portia to nothing. Qinzhao was very free these 2 days. He spent most of his time cultivating and training. He didn't go out either. Today, Qinzhao was diving in the sea. Zephyra and Portia were cleaning the house. At that moment, a stranger entered the Bright Moon Villa. Both Zephyra and Portia were confused when they saw the stranger, because the butler system didn't give him any notifications. Those who did not receive any notifications from the butler system meant that they had been approved and could enter the Bright Moon Villa directly. Portia, do you know this person? I don't know him. I've never seen him here. Then let's inform the boss. He should be here for the boss. Refra looked at the stranger who had already walked through the door. Zephyra, on the other hand, went to the front alley to greet them. But when Zephyra saw this person, she felt that there was something different about him. This was clearly the first time they had met, but she felt that this person was exuding a kind of affinity. This stranger was obviously a fatty, and he wasn't cute, nor was he handsome. However, he felt that this person should be a good person. Could it be that she had fallen in love with this person? This is the influence of magic. Zephyra woke up instantly. Are you using magic on me? Lila Gavich turned to look at Zevla. Are you a psychic too? Who are you? I'm here for Mr. Qin, Lila Gavich said. Also, I didn't use any magic on you. What you felt was my natural affinity. Zephyra looked at Lila Gavich in confusion. She had never interacted with elves before. She didn't even know about their existence. She had to admit that in her past life as a dragon slayer, her knowledge had always been very narrow. She knew of the existence of the dragon clan, but she did not know of the existence of the elf clan. Of course, with Lila Gavich's burly appearance, it was difficult for normal people to associate him with elves. Is Mr. Qin home? He is, but he's swimming in the sea. My other colleague has already informed Mr. Qin. Also, my colleague is a normal person. Okay, I understand. Lila Gavich nodded. Are you Mr. Qin's subordinate? More accurately, his personal assistant, Zephyr said. Zephyr was curious about Lila Gavich's identity. However, since Lila Gavich was Qinzhao's guest as his subordinate, she wouldn't rashly ask about his identity. When Lila Gavich entered the living room, Qinzhao was already back. Lila, why are you here? Mr. Qin, I want to ask for your help. What help? Qinzhao looked at Lila Gavich. The two of them were allies purely based on benefits. However, Qinzhao was quite grateful to Lila. After all, Qinzhao had learned the power of Jin from Lila. He had helped Qinzhao a lot. So, if it wasn't too troublesome, Qinzhao was willing to help. Portia, let's go out, Zephyr said. Zephyr was too good at reading people's expressions. She knew that Lila Gavich was hesitating because of her and Portia's presence. After Zephyr and Portia left, Lila Gavich finally spoke. I'm going to become an elven emissary, Lila Gage said. I remember that you just became a great elf not long ago, right? You're going to level up again so soon? It's different. Great elf is a level of power among the elves, while elf envoy is a special status. As long as certain conditions are met, any elf can become an elf envoy. Oh, like elf king and elf elder. It's a status and not a symbol of power, right? That's true, but there's a difference. The elven king needs the blood of the elven royal family in order to become the elven king. The royal family's bloodline has already disappeared from our race for 1,000 years. Not anyone can become the elven king, but the elven envoys don't have the bloodline restriction. Okay, I don't understand. How can I help you? Help you suppress the nature elves? No, to become an elf envoy, I won't be facing those nature elves. Instead, I'll be facing a test from all living things. In your Chinese language, it's God's test. I have to go through it. Chen Zhao's eyes widened. Are you sure you're not joking with me? Do I look like I'm joking with you? Like being struck by lightning? No, the elf envoy's test isn't limited to lightning. Anyway, it's very troublesome. Anything is possible. If you're here these 2 days, I can help, but I definitely won't have time next week. Chapter 1980. It won't be that fast. There should be around a month. You can't confirm the exact time? To become an elf envoy, you first have to pay respects to the ancestors and receive their recognition. Then you have to receive the blessings of fairies and at least 90% of your tribe's recognition. The ancestors represent the dead, the fairies represent nature, and the tribe represents the living. Only with these three's recognition will you have the right to become an elf envoy. Then, you have to sacrifice dragon blood to the world tree and make your achievements known to millions of people. Speaking of this, Lila Gavik pulled up his sleeve. A dark red brand appeared on it. This brand will become fainter every day. When it finally disappears, it will be the day I face the test of all things in the world. It's estimated to be around 30 days. I can understand the first 3, but do you have dragon blood? Amanda Didier is a dragon, so of course his blood is dragon blood. What about the world tree? Does the world tree really exist in this world? In the legends of the elves are the fruits of the world tree. After falling to the ground, they turned into elves, so we are the children of the world tree. In the hearts of every elf, the world tree really exists. You said that the world tree exists, but where is it? I don't know. Every elf is looking for the world tree. They've been looking since ancient times. What about your achievements? Have you done anything great? I got someone to use my name as the main character and wrote a legendary adventure biography. Through distribution, I've sent out tens of millions of copies. Currently, this book has been at the top of the bestseller list for 3 weeks. Hearing Lila Gavik's words, Chen Zhao almost vomited blood. You can do that? Isn't your ceremony a bit too careless? This ceremony is an ancient ceremony. At that time, only real legendary heroes were qualified to compile their experiences and great deeds into a book and spread it for people to revere and worship. However, in this era, as long as you have money, these problems are no longer a problem. The restrictions of the past have also lost their meaning. Chen Zhao grinned. Is it really okay to blaspheme your ancestors' ceremony like this? Do you think the ancestors of our elves were very strict? Lila Gavik rolled his eyes. Cutting off the head of a tyrant, killing an evil dragon, defeating an army, destroying a country, saving a people, and challenging a demon king. You have to complete at least 3 of these to be considered great achievements. Do you think any elf envoy in the past has completed 3 of these? Chen Zhao was also dumbfounded. The ancestors of the elves were really ambitious. Any one of these achievements was almost impossible to complete. He actually needed 3 of them to be considered great achievements. Even for Chen Zhao, the only thing he was confident in was killing an evil dragon. The other missions were almost impossible. Actually, in the past, those elven envoys had to fabricate their great achievements to gain the recognition of the world tree, but in this era, everything has become more convenient. Indeed, according to Lila Gavik, in the past, when communication was not developed, it took years or even decades for a person's biography to circulate. According to Lila Gavik, it would take years or even decades for a person's biography to spread in the past. As long as they were willing to spend money, the entire world would know their name in half a month. Anyway, Chen Zhao just felt that this ceremony was too perfunctory. What's the point of being an elf envoy? It's just a title, Lila Gavik said. Chen Zhao pursed his lips. He clearly didn't believe Lila Gavik. The complicated ceremony that he'd gone through so much trouble definitely wasn't just for a title. But since he didn't say anything, Chen Zhao didn't ask. Okay, I'll take it, Chen Zhao said. Let me know when you feel like you're about to go through the tribulation. Lila Gavik nodded. Oh, The last Pacific storm of the year will come 4 days after Christmas. What do you mean? Chen Zhao looked at Lila Gavik in confusion. Mr. Chen, you've been asking about Treasure Island, right? Yes. Chen Zhao knew that he'd asked Lila Gavik before. At the same time, he'd asked him to help him gather all information about Treasure Island. I got a diary left behind by an adventurer from hundreds of years ago. He wrote a poem in the diary. I'm waiting for the storm. I'm a petrel chasing the storm. I'll go wherever the wind goes. That place will be the dreamland of all explorers and pirates. I'll enjoy endless glory and wealth. Lila Gavik said, after this adventurer left this diary, he went to look for the legendary Treasure Island. Storm, petrel? Skull Hanks once said that there was a witch in his team. When the storm came, the witch turned into a petrel and guided them to follow the storm. They found the 7 mysterious islands, and from there, they found their final destination, Treasure Island. Chen Zhao wasn't thinking about the treasures on Treasure Island. It was still unknown whether there were treasures or how many there were. What Chen Zhao really cared about was another question. Who had sent Skull Hanks to Chen Zhao? The letter had come from the explorer Fanity. However, in Chen Zhao's impression, Fanity shouldn't have much to do with supernatural events. Therefore, Chen Zhao really suspected that Fanity had sent him Skull Hanks. Or rather, someone had sent him a skull under Fanity's name. Chen Zhao couldn't contact Fanity either. He was very doubtful that she was still alive. The first time, Fanity had sent him a metal object. She was referring to the golden curse of Kamasa Island. The second time, she'd sent him Skull Hanks. She'd never sent him anything good. Skull Hanks seemed to have been sent to guide Chen Zhao to Treasure Island. This meant that someone had already landed on Treasure Island and wanted to guide Chen Zhao to it. What was their goal? To share the treasures on Treasure Island with him? Chen Zhao wasn't that naive. There were only 2 reasons for wanting him to land on Treasure Island. One was to harm him. The other was that they needed help or help. Apart from these 2 possibilities, Chen Zhao couldn't think of a third one. Chapter 1981. There's still more than a month before the storm. How do you know? It's the 4th day after Christmas, which is December 29th. Can the weather forecast predict the weather in a month and a half? Mr. Chen, you're too amateurish. You can't predict the weather, but you can use prophecy. You're a spiritualist. Is that hard to understand? Plus, predicting the weather is just a small matter for a prophecy spiritualist. Chen Zhao felt very awkward. It was like a university professor being accused of being an amateur by a primary school student. However, Lila Gavich's words made Chen Zhao understand. The last chance to find the island would be at the end of the year. The wind and waves would definitely be huge. Should he bring his family? He'd also promised Fei Lai and the kids that he'd bring them on the treasure hunt. The only thing he knew now was how to find the island. However, finding the island seemed to require a special spell that could allow him to transform into a petrel. Of course, Chen Zhao wasn't sure if this was necessary. Just then, there was a knock on the door. "Boss, it's Miss Demi," Portia said. "Mr. Chen, I'm leaving now." Chen Zhao took the phone from Portia. "Hello, it's Chen Zhao. Mr. Chen, please come to the military base and meet with your teammates." "Is that necessary?" "They're all elites," Demi said. "Must I go?" "I hope you can come." "Don't tell me you've prepared a trap with guns and cannons for me? I'm not that bored." Demi's tone turned cold. "Actually, why don't you just send some people and leave the rest to me?" "Some things can't be explained over the phone," Demi said vaguely. "I'll talk to you in detail when you arrive." "Okay, I'll go now." Chen Zhao left Portia and Zephyr at home while he drove to the military base that Demi had given him. He couldn't find it with GPS, so Demi only gave him a map. For someone like Chen Zhao who had no sense of direction, finding the military base was rather difficult. It was mainly because he couldn't understand the map. Chen Zhao was driving in now. Most of the time he had to use GPS. He needed directions for every turn. After spending a lot of effort, they finally found the military base. The military base was located in the mountains and was surrounded by rocky valleys. It was very difficult to find. Moreover, he couldn't find this place on the satellite map, so he couldn't use satellite navigation. Demi was the supreme commander of this military base. When Chen Zhao's car reached the entrance of the military base, he was stopped by the sentries. The sentry pointed at the cordon and warning sign at the door and said, "No entry." "I'm looking for someone, Miss Demi." The sentry glanced at Chen Zhao. As he spoke, the sentry returned to the sentry post and picked up the phone to dial the internal line. After confirming that Chen Zhao was indeed invited by Demi, she pulled up the railing. Chen Zhao's sports car attracted a lot of attention. Chen Zhao parked the car at the entrance of the headquarters. A few soldiers surrounded him. "Hey, lend me your car." Chen Zhao turned around and gave him the middle finger. "No." The soldiers cursed, but they couldn't do anything to Chen Zhao. After all, they were soldiers, not bandits. While Chen Zhao entered the building, they could only jump into the car to have fun. Chen Zhao knew what was going on behind him, but as long as they didn't destroy his car, he didn't ask. After finding Demi's office, Chen Zhao pushed the door open. Demi was handling some documents. She was about to explode because Chen Zhao didn't knock. Seeing that it was Chen Zhao, she suppressed her anger. "Mr. Chen, you're here. Have a seat. Would you like something to drink?" "No," Chen Zhao said. "Let's get straight to the point." Demi was very careful. She glanced outside and then locked the door from the inside. After returning to her seat, Demi finally said, "First, there's the issue of money. A qualified military operation can't be carried out by just one person. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how high your reward is, it doesn't mean anything. Only appropriate losses and sacrifices can reflect your value, the difficulty of this military operation, and the sense of accomplishment after the final completion. Do you understand what I mean? You don't look like a soldier. You look more like a politician. You speak of the soldiers' deaths so naturally. In the past, just like I thought, I naively believed that only the smallest number of casualties and losses could be considered a successful military operation. However, the facts proved me wrong. The soldiers who carried out the military operation did not receive any merit, and I did not receive any commendations either. This was because the higher-ups believed that our operations were all easy missions. Demi continued, "And this operation, including your pay, will cost more than $30 million. What standard do you think the higher-ups will use to measure the value of this operation? Is it the enemy's strength? No, they'll judge based on the number of casualties." Chen Zhao didn't agree with Demi's thinking, but he wouldn't argue. They weren't his subordinates, anyway. Why should he care about their lives? "But according to your military compensation, the total compensation for a soldier's death will add up to a few $100,000, right? Plus, the military's investment in a soldier is at least a few $100,000. So, a soldier's death is about $1 million. The compensation for a soldier's death was divided into several steps. One part was covered by the insurance company, and the other was covered by the military. There were one-time compensation and continuous compensation for the spouse and children until the children grew up or the spouse remarried. Yes, the economic loss of a soldier is about $1.2 million, and the loss of an elite special forces soldier is $2 million. So, I've arranged a team of around 15 people for you. How many do you need to die? Chen Zhao asked. Around 10 people, plus the consumption of some weapons and ammunition. The economic loss should be around $30 million. I won't kill them, Chen Zhao said. I don't need you to kill them. I can't guarantee that many of them will die. To be honest, Chen Zhao couldn't understand the higher-ups' thinking. An operation actually had to use the number of soldiers sacrificed as the standard of difficulty. Was this really the most advanced army in the world? It was practically black culture. I have another request, Demi said. What? Chapter 1982. The leader must die. You have your bottom line and I have mine. Don't use your bottom line to challenge mine. All Chen Zhao could do was not come into contact with the soldiers, just like when they were on the Lake Pontchartrain Bridge. Back then, Chen Zhao had watched the monsters and soldiers fight as a bystander. But Chen Zhao wouldn't kill them. After all, they were teammates in name. Under any circumstances, attacking teammates was considered betrayal. If Chen Zhao did not come into contact with them, he would not know their names, personalities, and preferences. He would not develop feelings for them. Humans were strange creatures. A creature with a name and not had a name were two different concepts. For example, if a person gave their pet pig a name, the owner would not be able to tolerate the fate of the pig being eaten. In that case, the owner would not be able to tolerate the fate of the pet pig being eaten. Then, it would be personality and preferences. As the owner understood and had a deeper impression, a real image would be formed. After that, it would be personality and hobbies. With further understanding and a deeper impression, an image of flesh and blood would be established. Then, it would be personality and preferences. As one got to know and have a deeper impression, a real image would be formed. Feelings for other people or things would also develop. If Chen Zhao had feelings for them, even just a little, he wouldn't be able to watch them die. If Chen Zhao developed feelings for them, even a little, it would be difficult for him to watch them die. If the former was a problem of feelings, the latter was a problem of moral bottom line. Betrayal was not allowed or tolerated. This had always been the case. Fine, pretend I didn't say anything as long as you don't protect him. Just then, the office door was pushed open. It was very forceful. One had to know that Demi had locked the door from the inside. It was clear that the person outside was no longer just pushing. A human-shaped Tyrannosaurus stood outside. It was a man who was thicker and taller than Gaia. "Hey, Demi, I heard that you have a visitor. I'm here to see who it is." The human-shaped Tyrannosaurus turned around and saw Chen Zhao sitting on the chair. He walked over and patted his shoulder. Chen Zhao was not sure if the Tyrannosaurus did it on purpose or not, but it was very forceful. "Are you Demi's boyfriend?" Chen Zhao coughed a few times. He really looked like he was too weak to stand up to the wind. "Ham, he's your teammate." Demi sat on the chair calmly, her expression cold. "Teammates? I don't like strangers joining my team. It'll drag my team down," Ham said. Rather than calling him a teammate, it would be better to call him a companion. He won't give you any trouble, but of course, he won't listen to any of your orders either. Since he doesn't listen to my orders, why should I let him travel with me? Ham said unhappily. "Because this is my order. Do you understand?" Demi's attitude was even more unyielding. "No, I don't understand." Ham slammed his palms on Demi's desk, causing it to collapse. Demi pointed the gun at Ham's head. "Answer me. Do you understand?" Ham stared straight at Demi as if he was going to force her to do something. However, Demi was even more determined than him. Her finger was already on the trigger. Ham heaved a sigh of relief. "Fine. You're the commanding officer. Whatever you say." With that, Ham turned around. Glancing at Chen Zhao beside him, he turned to leave. "You want him dead?" Chen Zhao asked. Demi glanced at Ham's departing back. "Do you understand now why I want him dead? Does he have a grudge against you? He was originally the commander here, but after I came, I snatched away the authority that should have belonged to him. Even he became my subordinate." Demi glanced outside. "There are still people loyal to him in the base." "So troublesome," Chen Zhao said in annoyance. "Even in the military, there are these kinds of power struggles. Gather here on Monday morning and we'll leave together." "Are we taking a military plane?" "No, we're taking civil aviation," Demi said. "Fine. You all came to Mexico as civilians, Mexicali," the young man said. "Got it." When Chen Zhao went downstairs, he saw Ham standing beside his sports car. "Child." Ham put a hand on Chen Zhao's shoulder. "I hope you can give up on this mission." Chen Zhao turned his head silently and looked at Ham. "Child? He called me child? Do I look that young?" Ham narrowed his eyes at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao smiled at Ham. "You should move." Ham thought for a moment. In the end, he moved back and let Chen Zhao get in. Ham was displeased with Chen Zhao, but this was clearly not the place to fight. But there was still time. As long as he went to Mexico, he had 10,000 ways to prevent Chen Zhao from coming back. Chen Zhao drove away, but he could feel Ham's gaze. It seemed that the tiger would hurt the man if he meant no harm. To Qin Zhao, nothing had changed in the past 2 days. Apart from packing a box of clothes and daily necessities, he didn't prepare anything else. With Zephyra and Portia at home, there was nothing for Qin Zhao to worry about. On Monday morning, Qin Zhao arrived at the airport. Ham and his team were already waiting in the departure lounge. But they weren't waiting for Qin Zhao. They weren't planning on waiting for Qin Zhao at all. When Qin Zhao went to get his ticket, he realized that his ticket had already been taken. Usually he needed a personal ID to get a ticket, but Qin Zhao had it with him. His ticket was still taken. Qin Zhao had to use a special method to get into the departure lounge. Qin Zhao found Ham. "Where's my ticket?" Qin Zhao stood before Ham. He didn't like being harassed and troubled the entire trip. Ham and his teammates all looked at Qin Zhao with mocking eyes. "Ticket? Maybe you should ask Miss Demi. I don't know where your ticket is." "Okay, looks like you don't want a peaceful trip. Let's start from boarding." Qin Zhao looked at Ham. Qin Zhao sat across from Ham. Ham kept looking at Qin Zhao with a smile. Qin Zhao crossed his feet and also sat there calmly. It was finally boarding time. Suddenly, one of the team members realized that his passport was gone. "Look again. Did you put it in a corner?" "Captain, my passport is gone too." "Damn it, mine is gone too." At this time, Ham touched his pocket. He realized that his passport was gone too. Just then, Qin Zhao stood up. It's time to board. I should board now." Qin Zhao took out a ticket and a few passports from his pocket. How did our passports end up in his hands? Chapter 1983. Give us back our passports. Ham roared. Qin Zhao put his hand on Ham's shoulder. Calm down. Qin Zhao stuffed the passport back into Ham's shirt pocket. Of course I'll give it back to you. It was just a small joke. Qin Zhao patted Ham's chest again. But I hope that in the next few days, there will be fewer jokes like this. Do you understand? This was originally a small trick to humiliate and tease Qin Zhao. But now, they were being humiliated by Qin Zhao. This was clearly not the place to do it, unless they wanted to be stopped or blacklisted by civil aviation. After boarding the plane, Qin Zhao glanced at his ticket. "Hello, Mississippi, how can I help you?" The flight attendant approached Qin Zhao with a smile. "I'm not feeling well. I need to upgrade." Qin Zhao took out a black card, but he definitely couldn't swipe it on the plane, so he added $2,000 in cash. It was normal to operate in the plane's upgrade cabin, even without a black card. As long as there were empty seats and cash, and the purser handled it, one could upgrade. Of course, there was another possibility. It was because his body needed a better environment. At this time, the flight attendants would upgrade the passenger's cabin for free for the sake of the passenger's health and safety. Qin Zhao took out the black card mainly to increase the weight. Sometimes, there weren't enough empty seats and several people requested at the same time. That was when the black card would be effective. In fact, there would usually be passengers requesting upgrade on long-distance flights. This was because the cost of requesting to upgrade after takeoff was different from purchasing a first-class ticket. Some people would only ask for an upgrade after taking off for the sake of convenience. There were also premium members of the airline. If there were empty seats in the premium cabin, they had the right to request upgrade for free. When the flight attendant saw Qin Zhao's black card, her smile became even sweeter. In a short time, Qin Zhao successfully switched to first class. Ham and the soldiers all looked at Qin Zhao in annoyance. Even though it was only an hour and a half, Qin Zhao didn't want to stay with them. Los Angeles was less than 600 kilometers from Mecca. Not counting takeoff and landing time, the flight time was less than an hour. The climate in Cali is similar to that of Los Angeles, where the temperature is a little higher by 2 or 3 degrees. They belonged to the same climate region, and were the largest cities in Upper and Lower California. Of course, in terms of prosperity and economic size, the two were definitely not on the same level. However, as a tourist city, in order to attract a large number of American tourists, they did a good job in all aspects. When Qin Zhao left the airport, he could smell the dryness in the air. Baja California had a larger desert area, and the temperature here was above 25 degrees all year round. Ham and the others also walked out of the airport. They couldn't compare to Chen Zhao at all. It took them half an hour to get through customs. The black card in Chen Zhao's hand was like a pass. So slow. Chen Zhao pursed his lips. Are all American soldiers so inefficient? Everyone, including Ham, was enraged, and their eyes were almost spitting fire. Monkey, you'd better watch your mouth. Ham no longer hid his disdain and hostility towards Chen Zhao. Anyway, this is Takali. You should also watch your words, Big Black Bear. Do you dare say that again? Ham was already standing before Chen Zhao. Standing before Chen Zhao, he was 1 meter tall. He was like a mountain that loomed over Chen Zhao's head. Mr. Black Bear. Without hesitation, Ham punched Chen Zhao's face. But his fist didn't even cause a ripple on Chen Zhao's face. Let me teach you how to punch. Bang! Chen Zhao punched Ham to the ground. Ham yelped as one of his teeth fell out. Chen Zhao stood before Ham and loosened the collar of his shirt. Chen Zhao looked at Ham coldly. Before you attack, you better know who your opponent is, idiot. The other soldiers all stared at Chen Zhao with hatred. As long as Ham gave the order, they would attack Chen Zhao without hesitation. Ham stood up again and spat out the blood in his mouth. He stared at Chen Zhao with hatred. Kid, you'll die here. Chen Zhao chuckled. You should focus your energy on this mission, otherwise, you'll definitely die earlier than me. It was an unpleasant encounter from the start. Obviously, this operation wouldn't have any good prospects to look forward to. But after punching Ham, Chen Zhao believed that Ham wouldn't ask for trouble again. Especially after Chen Zhao stayed in the most expensive suite in the hotel. After they stayed in affordable rooms, the dissatisfaction was about to explode. Chen Zhao clearly didn't plan on changing the soldiers' impression of him. He still did what he wanted. He had the best food and accommodation and even showed off in front of the soldiers. In the evening, Chen Zhao went out again. At the entrance of the hotel, a woman walked over. She had bronze skin, wavy long hair, and a perky cleavage. She wore stilettos and looked to be in her early 30s. Hello, you must be Mr. Chen. I'm Ella Gonzalez, the local guide you contacted in the afternoon. Hello. Chen Zhao shook hands with Ella Gonzalez. Mr. Chen, I grew up in Immerse. I know this place very well. I can even bring you to experience some special services. Ella's words were a bit vague. But I hope that my pay can be higher. Chen Zhao understood what Ella Gonzalez meant. But Chen Zhao still shook his head. Sorry, I don't need those services. I think that 100 a day isn't low. You can't ask me to pay more. Of course, if you think that my pay is too low, I can change to another guide. Okay. 100 a day, but I'll only start after 10 and finish before 7. Sure. Chen Zhao nodded. Do you want to start working now? Then do you want to start paying now? Let's go. Bring me to eat the most special local food. 20 minutes later, Ella Gonzalez brought Chen Zhao to a restaurant. Chen Zhao stood before the sign and spaced out for at least 3 minutes. Ms. Ella, are you sure you didn't bring me to the wrong place? Chapter 1984. Chen Zhao and Ella Gonzalez stood in front of a Chinese restaurant. Chen Zhao really wanted to tell her, are you fucking kidding me? But Chen Zhao maintained his rationality. Ella, do you know where I'm from? I know. I'm from China. I want to eat the local delicacies of Macali, not Chinese food. If I want to eat, I can make it myself. But Ascali's most famous restaurant is Chinese. Ella Gonzalez shrugged at Chen Zhao. In fact, the most famous food in Cali is Chinese food. Not eating Chinese food in Immerse was like going to China's capital and not going to the Great Wall. This Chinese restaurant is really good, Ella Gonzalez emphasized. Okay, I know it's good. Chen Zhao scratched his head. Okay, let's go in and try. The waiters in the restaurant were both Chinese and natives. Seeing Chen Zhao and Ella Gonzalez walk in, a Chinese waitress immediately came over. Sir, miss, hello. What would you like? Give me one of your signature dishes, Chen Zhao said in Chinese. The Chinese waitress looked at Chen Zhao and also asked in Chinese, are you from China for vacation? Sort of, Chen Zhao replied. Chen Zhao could also tell that the waitress wasn't Chinese. She was Chinese herself. There were some differences between Chinese and Chinese. Foreigners might not be able to tell, but Chinese could definitely. The waitress could also tell that Chen Zhao was speaking Chinese, so she spoke to him in Chinese. Hello, I'm Zhang Yi. Hello, Chen Zhao. I won't disturb you anymore. I'll go help you with the order. Zhang Yi stopped there. A while later, Zhang Yi brought a plate of white chicken to the table. Are you free? Let's sit down and talk. Chen Zhao hadn't talked to people in a long time. Zhang Tianyi didn't count. Chen Zhao had never talked to that old bastard seriously. He only felt like talking to a normal person like Zhang Yi. Sorry, I still have work. Also, I won't disturb you and this beautiful lady. Okay. Chen Zhao didn't want to force her. For a moment, Chen Zhao really wanted to slam a few $1,000s on the table and tell Zhang Yi, I'll buy you for 30 minutes. Mr. Chen, what do you think of the smell here? Ella looked at him expectantly. The taste here couldn't be said to be bad, but it was still different from the taste in China. After all, after Chinese cuisine was exported to other parts of the world, it would be localized to a certain extent. Even in Cali, there was no exception. Not bad, Chen Zhao replied. You should eat some too. To be honest, the taste here was much worse than Chen Zhao's own. If he wanted to eat Chinese food, he would rather eat at home. After leaving the restaurant, Zhang Yi chased after him to the entrance. Mr. Chen, this is the china knot from our restaurant. Thanks. Chen Zhao took the china knot. Are you studying here? Yes, yes. Zhang Yi nodded. I'm leaving. Bye, Chen Zhao said. Goodbye. Chen Zhao and Ella Gonzalez left. Ella Gonzalez was also planning to get off work. Mr. Chen, I'll come to your hotel at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Okay, be careful. When Chen Zhao returned to the hotel, he realized that the door to his suite had been opened. The lock was a fingerprint lock. Judging from the lock, it wasn't opened by force. Hotels nowadays all had alarm systems. If a room was forcefully opened, the alarm would be triggered. Chen Zhao entered the room and checked his luggage. His suitcase was also opened. His clothes and daily necessities were scattered everywhere. Almost everything was destroyed. His tablet was lost. Chen Zhao picked up the internal phone and called the hotel customer service. A while later, the customer service manager came. Seeing Chen Zhao's messy suitcase, his heart skipped a beat. Chen Zhao was a black card customer. When he checked into the hotel, he'd already been marked. Now that Chen Zhao's luggage had been robbed, it was a disaster for the hotel. I need to check the surveillance footage, Chen Zhao said calmly. From 5 in the afternoon until I returned to the hotel. Of course, no problem. Mr. Chen, do you need to call the police? The manager asked carefully. Not now. The manager brought Chen Zhao to the surveillance room. He said to the guard on duty, get the surveillance footage from the 20th floor immediately, starting from 5 in the afternoon. Seeing the manager's tone and expression, the guard on duty vaguely realized that something had happened. He hurriedly pulled up the footage, but after a while, he suddenly turned his head with a pale face and looked at Chen Zhao and the manager. Manager. The footage isn't recorded. What? It's not recorded? How do you work? Normally, banks or financial institutions kept their surveillance footage for at least 3 months. Hotels kept it for at least a week, but Chen Zhao couldn't find the footage from a few hours ago. Chen Zhao clearly couldn't accept this explanation. Why isn't it recorded? I don't know. I didn't do it before, the guard said frantically. The security guard on duty said in a panic, it should be working normally all the time. Why isn't there any recording? Strange, it clearly shows that it is continuously recording. Chen Zhao looked at the footage. After a few minutes, he said, these cameras are connected to an external line, so it's a continuous image. The guard on duty didn't have any skills. Apart from pressing a few buttons, he didn't know anything else, so it could be ruled out that he was the culprit. However, the guard was still panicking. How can this be? How can this be? Chen Zhao turned and walked out of the surveillance room. Such professional skills weren't something a thief could do. Chen Zhao had a rough idea of who did it. He'd found the stolen goods. These people probably thought that Chen Zhao couldn't find any evidence, which was why they were so unrestrained. Chen Zhao knocked on Ham's door. When Ham saw Qin Zhao, his lips curled into a smile. Mr. Qin, did you just come back? Is Cali fun? Give me back my stuff and I'll pretend this never happened. A playful expression appeared on Ham's face. Mr. Qin, what are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. Just answer me. Are you going to give it back or not? Qin Zhao still looked at Ham calmly. I don't know what you mean. If there's nothing else, please leave. I'm tired. Goodbye. Chapter 1985. You better sleep with your gun. After all, I don't have a good temper. Are you threatening me? Ham sneered at Qin Zhao. Yes, I'm threatening you. Qin Zhao smiled and turned to leave. Ham's expression gradually turned cold. After Qin Zhao left, he immediately knocked on his teammate's door. Ham had never been threatened like this before. Usually, he would point his gun at the person's head. However, he had to take Qin Zhao's threats seriously. Be careful tonight. That monkey might really take revenge on you tonight. Captain, don't worry. If he really dares to come, I'll kill him right away. Ham nodded and left the room. The moment he closed the door, he suddenly heard a noise in the room. Ham hurriedly opened the door, but there was no one in the room. Denzel? Where did you go? There was only a bedroom and a bathroom in the room. There was no other place to hide. Ham searched inside and out but was unable to find Denzel's figure. Just then, the curtains moved. Ham ran to the window and realized that it was open. However, this place was more than 10 floors above ground. The wall outside was completely smooth glass. Ham's expression changed and he hurriedly ran to inform the others. However, the room next door didn't open after knocking for a long time. Ham immediately picked up his phone and dialed his teammate's number. But no one picked up. Ham felt that something had happened to them too, so he smashed open the door. There was no one inside either. Like Denzel's room, the window was open. Ham smashed open another room and got the same result. Missing. His subordinates were all missing. Ham panicked too. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to do at all. Call the police? Would the police be able to handle this? Suddenly, the lights in the corridor dimmed and went out without any warning. Ham felt a hand pinching his neck. Then, the hand suddenly increased its strength. Ham felt suffocated. In the blink of an eye, he fell into a coma. Vaguely, he felt like he was thrown onto a hard floor. Then there was a tremor. Even in a coma, Ham's subconscious was still working. He was in the back of the car. When Ham woke up again, the sky was already brightening. Ham found that he and his companions were buried in the ground, with only their heads sticking out. His other companions were still unconscious. Max, hurry up and wake up, damn it. Not long after, Denzel woke up. What happened? I can't move. Damn it, whose prank is this? Where is this place? The third person also woke up. After the sun rose completely, everyone woke up. At this time, they also knew where they were. This was a desert, and they were buried in the soil. It's that monkey's doing. I want to kill him. Damn bastard. Everyone was cursing loudly, but Qin Zhao wasn't here at all. When the sun began to rise, the temperature also began to rise. Everyone was exposed to the sun, and they began to feel thirsty. Morning, Mr. Qin. Ella Gonzalez entered Qin Zhao's room and saw that he was training. Morning. Qin Zhao wiped his sweat. What's our schedule today? Let's go to the Mersicali Zoo first, then the Mexican-American War Museum. In the afternoon, we can go to the Sicker Casino. I'm not going to the casino. I'm not interested in gambling. You can have some fun and relax, Ella Gonzalez said. No need. Cancel the trip to the casino. Ella felt that it was a pity. After all, she would get a cut of whatever Qin Zhao spent in the casino. Every tour guide in Mersicali had some connection to the casino. Unfortunately, Qin Zhao wasn't interested, so there was nothing she could do. Then let's go to the city park instead. Sure. Qin Zhao and Ella's first stop was the zoo. Mersicali Zoo wasn't a famous zoo, but there were many species. That's the crocodile pond. A tourist fell in before. And then the rescuers found an arm. Qin Zhao leaned against the railing and looked at the crocodile pond. I think we should have chosen this place last night. Maybe it'll be more interesting. What are you talking about? No, nothing. Qin Zhao shook his head. Just then, a worker was holding a pole with a rope tied to it. There was also a piece of meat hanging from the rope. It was attracting the crocodiles to jump out of the water, causing the surrounding tourists to exclaim, "Mr. Qin, do you want to enter the airtight cabin and have close contact with the crocodiles?" "Sure." Qin Zhao nodded. Seeing Ella Gonzalez's proud expression, Qin Zhao asked, "Do you get a cut from this project too?" "I just earned some hard-earned money." Qin Zhao and Ella Gonzalez both entered the sealed cabin. The airtight cabin slowly sank into the water. By then, the surrounding crocodiles had already surrounded them. They even used their huge bodies to hit the cabin. Some even used their bloody mouths to bite into the cabin. Ella Gonzalez wanted to see Qin Zhao's dazed expression. But when she turned to look at him, she realized that his hands were still in his pockets. "Aren't you scared?" This airtight cabin is made of super fiberglass. 1 square meter can withstand 500 MPa of water pressure. Most of the floor-to-ceiling windows in my house are made of this glass. I know how tough it is. The crocodiles can't destroy it. Qin Zhao wasn't a material expert, but Felwood Cisco often mentioned this glass material to him, so he had a deep impression. Of course, this glass was also very expensive. 1 square meter of super fiberglass cost tens of thousands of dollars. Ella Gonzalez rolled her eyes. "This project is meaningless with your reaction. Then how should I behave?" "You can be excited," Ella said. Ella Gonzalez said, "I've accompanied customers to experience this project no less than 100 times. Their reactions have varied, but they've never been as calm as yours." The project only lasted 10 minutes. The airtight cabin was quickly pulled back to the water. Here, Qin Zhao saw all kinds of animals and entertainment. But he wasn't interested at all. He'd rather go home than interact with these animals. He had many animals at home too. They were much more interesting than the animals here. Chapter 1986. Oh, what's the police number in Mexico? Is it also 911? No, it's 066. Mr. Qin, do you want to call the police? What kind of trouble are you in? I can help you contact some local gangs. Maybe they can help. Of course, it's for a fee. No, I just want to know, just in case, Qin Zhao said calmly. At the same time, he stuffed $100 into Ella Gonzalez's hand. Can you buy an ice cream for me? Okay. No change? You can keep the rest as your errand fee. It was already noon. This was the hottest time of the day. In the desert, the temperature was above 30 degrees. Ham and the others had been buried for half a day. Everyone was dehydrated. Some were even showing signs of heat stroke. They didn't have the energy to talk anymore. They were all on the verge of death. This wasn't a pleasant experience for anyone. Even the harshest test they'd gone through hadn't been this extreme. Just when they thought that they were going to die here, police sirens came from the distance. Soon, the police arrived. A total of 15 people were all rescued. Sir, I want to know how you know I'm here? We received an anonymous call saying that you were buried here, the police said. Do you know who did it? Or do you have any suspects? Everyone fell into silence. Everyone knew who did it. After giving their statements, everyone dragged their tired bodies back to the hotel. When Hem opened the door to his room, he heard a sound in the room. He immediately reached for his gun, but he didn't touch anything. Only then did he remember that his gun wasn't on him. Hem carefully walked in while sticking to the wall. He saw Qin Zhao sitting on the sofa in the room, a book in his hand. When he saw Ham enter, Qin Zhao put down the book with a smile. Ham, what are you doing in my room? How did you get in? How was your experience today? Qin Zhao smiled at Ham. So it was you Shoal. Qin Zhao stood up. Where's my stuff? Are you willing to return it to me now? Don't even think about it. Is that so? I went to check out Makali today. I found out that there is a crocodile pool in Makali Zoo. There are hundreds of crocodiles in it. Put my things back before I have dinner. Qin Zhao walked to Ham's side. After all, crocodile might not give you time to consider. At this moment, Ham felt unprecedentedly humiliated. When Chen Zhao was having dinner, Ham came to the hotel restaurant. "Mr. Chen, I think we should talk." Chen Zhao put down his cutlery and looked at Ham and his two subordinates. "All right, go ahead. I'm listening." "We shouldn't have been enemies," said Ham. "You started it from the beginning." Chen Zhao leaned against the chair and crossed his arms. His attitude was very cold. "I understand. I made the wrong choice. But at least things haven't reached the worst, right?" Chen Zhao maintained the same posture and didn't say anything. Ham tilted his head slightly. His subordinates brought over the lost item. In addition to the tablet, he also took a few more valuable items. For example, the perfume that Chen Zhao usually used for men. "Mr. Chen, I came with sincerity to talk to you." Chen Zhao rubbed his brow. "I think I know what you mean. Let's stop here. Mr. Chen, I hope that we can cooperate sincerely in this operation." "Ham, you know that it's impossible. We don't trust each other at all. Remember to inform me when you act." Chen Zhao said calmly. "Are you still going to sit here? You can't afford the restaurant's expenses." Taking a deep breath, Ham turned around and left with his men. "Captain, are we just going to give in like this?" Daniel asked in a low voice. His tone was filled with resentment. Anyone else wouldn't feel happy after being buried in the desert for half a day. "There's still a chance," Ham growled. "When we act, we'll all be equipped with our own weapons. Then we'll give him a small surprise." They didn't have enough weapons right now. They needed to contact an arms dealer. All the conversations that they thought were private fell into Chen Zhao's ears. Chen Zhao realized that people who like to fight for power always like to test the boundaries of danger. Compared to them, Chen Zhao liked the supernatural organization and West more. He would never do anything to test the waters. West was smarter than all of them, because West knew that he only needed to test them once. And that was when Chen Zhao left. Of course, Chen Zhao wouldn't do anything, even if Ham and the others were crazy for death. After returning to his room, Chen Zhao called his family. Then it was West in the African plains. "West, who are you talking to?" Someone patted West's shoulder. West turned around and glanced at the tall black man beside him. "My boss." "I thought you're the boss." "I'm just in charge of leading the team. I can't subdue these monsters. Introduce me when I have the chance." "You won't like seeing him." West chuckled. There was something else in his gaze when he looked at the black man. "Ta." The black man smiled brightly. Terry Boyd, a member that the manager had sent to their team. He was outstanding and an almost all-round sorcerer. He had almost no weaknesses in long-range magic and melee attacks. He wasn't weaker than any member of the organization. In fact, he wasn't even that strong. In every battle, he hadn't displayed his true abilities. To be honest, West was indeed shocked by Terry's abilities in the first few battles. But gradually, West realized some problems. Terry was indeed terrifyingly powerful. But his identity wasn't simple either. Terry Boyd. His surname was the same as the Nature Guardians. Therefore, West suspected that Terry was the Nature Guardian, the poisonous dragon that had never revealed its true form. West didn't know why Terry Boyle would join their team of his own accord. Also, wasn't the Nature Guardian heavily injured? That was why West said that Terry wouldn't like seeing Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao was a professional dragon slayer. There was probably no one more professional than him in the world. Chapter 1987. Why wouldn't I like meeting your boss? Because he's hot-tempered. I'm good at making friends, Terry Boyle said. Trust me, he's definitely not on your list of friends. Is it really okay to slander your boss behind his back? West stood up with a smile. To be honest, other than Gaia and his little dragon, he's killed all the dragons he's seen. Terry's expression froze. When did you find out? You don't seem to be planning to hide it, West said. Or rather, you don't plan to hide it from us. That's why I'm being honest with you. To be honest, if a dragon wanted to hide his identity, he could do it better. All right, what do you want to talk about? The manager said that you're so heavily injured that you're almost peeing blood, but you don't look like you're in danger at all. West looked Terry up and down. Do you know how long I've been a guardian? No. 100 years? 1,000 years? 500 years. If it's 1,000 years, I can retire, Terry said. Terry Boyle said, but even if it's only 500 years, I'm already sick of it. I have to face those twisted and unnatural creatures every day. But I can't start a war. I'm the nature guardian. The only thing I can do is maintain the status quo. What a bastard rule. West was a good listener. At least when Terry complained, he didn't seem annoyed at all. Then, Blood Mary came to me and provided me with a good plan. Of course, her fee isn't cheap. So, the so-called injury is actually a trap between you and the 23rd Blood Mary? You can't start a war, but those unnatural creatures can. You want them to start a war? Yes, and they even attracted a powerful spiritualist team like you. What about the benefits the manager promised? Is it real or fake? Of course it's real. Malone's promise is my promise. Terry Boyd smiled at West. So, what's your choice now that you know the truth? For us, the truth is not important. The reason why I'm talking to you openly is not only to satisfy my curiosity, but also to ensure that we are not pawns in some conspiracy. To be precise, you are indeed pawns. At least our roles aren't that hard to accept. If you can let your boss who can slay dragons participate in this war, I will pay you handsomely. Our boss is a collector. Fire dragon, black dragon, silver dragon, metal dragon. He seems to be missing a dragon ball from a poison dragon. Can you provide it? All right, forget about him. I think he's not interested in the remuneration I'm offering. A wise choice. Chen Zhao had just learned that Ham had just completed the arms transfer today. American arms suppliers were all over the world. Of course, Ham wouldn't tell him how many weapons he'd received. However, Chen Zhao had estimated that the firearms were enough for a soldier to kill a tank division. Chen Zhao looked into the distance. Ham and his men were testing the weapons. They even put Chen Zhao's photo on the target. It was as if their weapons weren't for missions, but to deal with Chen Zhao. Of course, as long as they were happy. These soldiers were more like spoiled boys. Their weapons gave them great confidence and a sense of security. Just then, Chen Zhao's phone rang. Mr. Chen, don't you have plans to go out today? Ella asked. Sorry, no, but I'll still pay you, Chen Zhao said. Okay then. Ella Gonzalez was happy to relax. She could get money and not have to work. I think there are gunshots over there. I'm watching a movie. Okay, have a good day. Bye. Seeing that Ham and the others were almost done with their weapons testing, Chen Zhao turned to leave. They'd been wasting time in Cali these days, but they weren't idling. Instead, they were waiting for information. Right now, they could only lock onto the location of Sarah's lab within 500 square kilometers. What did this mean? It was about the size of a medium-sized city that could accommodate 3 million people. Finding a laboratory in such a large area, especially one that was hidden underground, was no different from finding a needle in a haystack. Even Chen Zhao couldn't find it unless he was willing to spend a lot of time. But Chen Zhao definitely wouldn't go looking for trouble. As America's backyard, the American intelligence network in Mexico was even more developed than the Mexican government. They'd find clues sooner or later anyway. Chen Zhao didn't need to be snubbed. Chen Zhao was driving. Cali's scenery, urban planning, and layout were quite nice. When he passed by Mexicali University, he happened to see a familiar figure walking out of the school. Zhang Yi had just finished class and was walking out with her textbooks. Chen Zhao parked the car by the roadside. Zhang Yi also saw him. Mr. Chen, right? Hello, Ms. Zhang. Where are you going? I'll drive you. Thanks, but it's okay. I still need to work. Zhang Yi was clearly wary of Chen Zhao. It's not close to the restaurant you work at. I'm not going to the restaurant. I have 3 jobs. I need to rush to a supermarket this afternoon. Come on, Chen Zhao said, smiling. I won't eat you. Zhang Yi hesitated for a while, but finally got into Chen Zhao's car. Mr. Chen, aren't you traveling with a group? No, I'm traveling on my own. In Zhang Yi's eyes, those who could travel on their own were all rich. Mexico's consumption level wasn't high, but traveling abroad with a group would cost at least 10 or 20,000 RMB. If he was traveling on his own, however, It would be expensive. Who was that lady that day? I hired a local guide. What do you do, Mr. Chin? When I come back, maybe I can work at your company. I'm running a small business. I probably can't afford a top student like you. I'm studying in Mexico, but I'm not a top student. I'm just trying to get some experience. I'm just opening a small workshop and producing beer with a brand name. If you really come to my place, I probably won't know what to do, unless you're willing to work as a technician on the production line. From the way you talk, you don't seem like a nouveau riche who produces fake products. I studied medicine, but I couldn't stay a doctor anymore, so I became a small boss. Chapter 1988. Is this the supermarket where you work? Zhang Yi got out of the car and stood before the window. Can I have your number? Maybe we can eat together next time. It might not be convenient. Chen Zhao shrugged helplessly. If we meet again, I'll call you. Zhang Yi had thought that Chen Zhao wanted to pursue her. She also felt that Chen Zhao was interesting, knowledgeable, and had some money. She should be a good stock, so she wanted to develop a relationship with Chen Zhao. But Chen Zhao didn't have that thought at all. In fact, Chen Zhao just wanted to chat with a Chinese person. That was all. Goodbye. Zhang Yi suddenly jumped in front of the car. I don't really like you, but I still want to know why you rejected me. First of all, I have a family and a lot of kids. Also, I just wanted to chat with you. I haven't talked to Chinese people in a long time, so I don't plan on developing a relationship. Zhang Yi was speechless at Chen Zhao's answer, but she still moved to the front of the car. I hope we'll never meet again. Okay, it's really goodbye this time. Chen Zhao saw Zhang Yi give him the middle finger from behind. But Chen Zhao still generously waved his hand outside the car window. Zhang Yi felt very depressed. She was also listless when she went to work. Just then, a woman wearing sky-high heels walked behind Zhang Yi and put her hands on her shoulders. She looked very intimate. Baby, what's wrong? Just now, I asked a man for his number, but he rejected me, Zhang Yi said, depressed. He's either gay or impotent. He asked to chat with me twice. I thought he liked me, so I asked for his number. In the end, he said he just wanted to chat with someone. It's so humiliating. Did you frighten him away somewhere? Did he know your identity and think he's not good enough for you? Sis, did you watch too many TV shows? They don't act like this anymore. But there's something similar. Your father asked you to go back and inherit the family business. Are you sure he asked me to go back and inherit the family business? Instead of squandering the family business? Anyway, that's your family's business and has nothing to do with me. If you're willing to continue playing the role of a poor noble girl, I'll cooperate with your performance. Zhang Yi pursed her lips. She really did have plans to develop a relationship. At the very least, Chen Zhao was pretty good in all aspects. At the very least, he was a divination that they could get along well with. For a girl from a rich family like her, even if she grew up watching those melodramatic dramas, she would never be able to resist. When it came to choosing a lover, she would also prioritize a man with a similar background, a man with similar topics and horizons. In this world, there were stories of princesses falling in love with poor boys, but the possibility of that was even lower than winning the lottery. After all, there would be 1 or 2 winners of the lottery every episode. However, there might not even be one in the real world in a melodramatic drama about a princess falling in love with a poor boy. Putting aside the plot of a television series, there might not even be one in the real world in 10 years. Chen Zhao probably didn't even know that the girl he'd randomly picked up to earn money to support her studies was actually from a rich family. Of course, even if he knew, he wouldn't care. When Chen Zhao talked to someone, he wouldn't ask about their background first. After returning to the hotel, Ham came to find him. Mr. Chen, we've already locked onto the exact location of Sarah's lab and the entrance. We're planning to move tonight. Do you have anything you need to prepare? I don't need to prepare anything. Chen Zhao rubbed his nose. But have you gotten your weapons and equipment? It's not what I expected, but it's more or less ready. Both sides were lying through their teeth. It seemed like they'd really reconciled. Chen Zhao felt that even if he had to work with Demi next time, he definitely wouldn't work with others. It was a really uncomfortable feeling. Every word was filled with lies and hypocrisy. Mr. Chen, what weapons do you need? If we have extra, we can help you prepare them. I don't really need anything. Oh, do you have a Desert Eagle? Mr. Chen, are you used to using a Desert Eagle? Actually, most people who used guns wouldn't like a Desert Eagle. As a large-caliber handgun, the Desert Eagle had a terrifying recoil that was as powerful as its power. Even men had to hold the gun with both hands to shoot. If they used one hand, they might break their bones with one shot. The Desert Eagle had actually become popular because of games and TV shows. If the main character held the Desert Eagle with both hands and fired continuously, the main character would probably be paralyzed after a battle. After the battle, the protagonist would probably be paralyzed. That terrifying recoil would directly make the protagonist infertile. In the military of every country, no country used the Desert Eagle as a regular weapon. No, I'm just keeping it as a collection. Okay, I'll prepare a Desert Eagle for you tonight. Ham looked sincere, but he was actually very disdainful of Chen Zhao's choice. True professionals almost never used the Desert Eagle as equipment. As for what Ham was thinking, Chen Zhao didn't care at all. Then I'll have to trouble you, Ham, Chen Zhao said intimately. However, Ham wouldn't fall for it. In fact, after Chen Zhao buried Ham and his team in the desert, Ham's vigilance toward Chen Zhao was at its highest. Ham and his subordinates analyzed for 2 days, but they still couldn't figure out how Chen Zhao had done it. In such a short time, Chen Zhao had infiltrated the suite through the hotel's outer wall. After all, what had happened that night was too strange. Even if it happened again, Ham wouldn't know how to defend against it. This time, Ham wouldn't underestimate Chen Zhao like before. If he wasn't completely confident, he definitely wouldn't act rashly. After dinner, Ham and his team were all busy preparing and checking their weapons. Only Chen Zhao was still recovering in the restaurant. Ham couldn't help but rush him. But Chen Zhao still did what he wanted. Ham, don't be so impatient. Take it slow. It's still early. Early? Ham glanced at Chen Zhao. They couldn't just walk out of the door and turn right to Sarah's lab. Their schedule tonight was very tight. It would take a few hours just to get to Sarah's lab. It was already a miracle that they could get there in the second half of the night. In fact, after entering the highway, they had to face the desert in the night. After half an hour of Ham's urging, Chen Zhao was finally full. Mr. Chen, can we go now? Of course. No problem. Chapter 1989. When Chen Zhao stepped into a modified military transport vehicle, the atmosphere in the vehicle dropped to a freezing point. The soldiers all gripped their guns tightly and stared at Chen Zhao. It seemed like they could attack at any time. Just then, Ham spoke up. Mr. Chen, here's the Desert Eagle you wanted. Ham lowered the gun and handed it to Chen Zhao by the handle. Thank you. Chen Zhao took the Desert Eagle and wiped the gun with a handkerchief. He had to admit that the Desert Eagle was indeed very beautiful. Chen Zhao couldn't bear to put it down. The Desert Eagle was just like in the movies. It was heavy in his hands and his entire aura changed. It could be said that it was a firearm that was deified in movies. Its huge recoil force and weight of up to 2 kilograms, as well as its low performance and reliability, made it impossible for it to be used professionally. However, it had a very good market for civilian use. The Desert Eagle had always been one of the top-selling guns on old America's gun shops' shelves. Therefore, the Desert Eagle fully demonstrated the saying that appearance was the best. Of course, Chen Zhao also felt the disdain from his teammates. Mr. Chen, do you like guns? Chen Zhao's few records of killing enemies with guns had all been by pointing the muzzle at the enemy's head. How could Chen Zhao like guns? He was just a fan and worshipped this legendary weapon. But after a few rounds, he got bored. His natural lack of passion for guns also came with it. It was mainly because Chen Zhao lacked the talent for firearms. Chen Zhao had shot at the enemies with firearms several times, but the kills turned into threats. The enemies thought that Chen Zhao didn't kill them on purpose. After leaving the city, the transport vehicle entered the desert. At first, the transport vehicle could still move. Apart from being a bit bumpy, there were no other flaws. But in less than 10 minutes, the vehicle stopped moving. After everyone got off, they realized that it was a crack in the terrain. The vehicle couldn't drive over, so they could only get off and walk. It took them quite some time to go around the crack. Actually, both Upper and Lower California weren't desertified. It was mainly because of the rainfall that dried up the land. The geology was mainly rock, black soil, and loess. It wasn't like the Sahara Desert, which was completely desertified. It was cold in the desert at night. Because everyone needed to fight, they couldn't wear too thick clothes. When the cold wind blew, they all shivered. Don't think that these elites who trained in water and fire are not afraid of the cold. In fact, this was the most painful moment for them. This was because they would sweat a lot when they moved forward while carrying a heavy load, and sweat would take away heat at a faster rate, thus consuming even more physical strength. If it was a sub-zero temperature environment, it would not consume so much energy. This was because the low temperature caused the sweat glands in the human body to contract, and the low temperature made it even drier. Therefore, the difference in temperature was not that great. It was just like what the Chinese often said about the fighting nation, running around naked in an environment that was more than -10 degrees Celsius. In fact, in southern China, when the temperature was 5 or 6 degrees above zero, the humidity would increase by 10% and the temperature difference would decrease by 10 degrees. Therefore, the temperature of -10 degrees Celsius in the fighting nation was actually similar to the temperature of a few degrees Celsius in the south of Huaxia. Of course, this was also the time to show off their stamina. After replenishing some nutritional water, they resumed their journey. Ham had been observing Qin Zhao in secret. When everyone else rested, Qin Zhao rested too. While everyone was replenishing their stamina, he was also replenishing his stamina. But without a doubt, Qin Zhao was carrying almost zero weight. It was a completely different experience from them. All of them were heavily armed. The guns and ammunition on them added up to more than 40 kilograms. Therefore, if a battle happened, Qin Zhao would definitely have an advantage in terms of stamina. Of course, Qin Zhao had almost no equipment, so his firepower was definitely not as good as the fully armed soldiers. Ham evaluated in his heart. To be honest, they had known each other for a few days. However, he had never seen Qin Zhao fight seriously. The incident at the airport could only be considered a small conflict. It was far from fighting. But Ham knew that Qin Zhao was an expert hired by Demi at a high price. Ham did not have access to the base's budget, so he did not know how high Qin Zhao's price was. But Demi would definitely not hire a beggar to make up the numbers. Moreover, Qin Zhao had already silently tied up the entire team and buried them alive in the desert that night, proving his strength. He also believed that Qin Zhao did not carry weapons not because he was careless or arrogant. He was probably the type that was better at close-range combat. Demi had also said that Qin Zhao was an expert in this area. Ham really wanted to see what kind of expert Qin Zhao was. But there were no battles or ambushes along the way. Their biggest enemy was only stamina. They found the entrance according to the intelligence. This is the wall. Where's the entrance? They stopped before a wall in a valley. According to the intelligence, this was the entrance. But there was nothing else apart from the wall. It should be a hidden entrance. Ham studied the wall before him. Then he looked at Qin Zhao. Mr. Qin, do you have any suggestions? If the normal method of finding the entrance was very complicated, there was another way, exploding the wall. The rock wall was about 10 meters long, and they had enough explosives. They could use them to determine the location of the entrance. But this way, they would also be exposed. It would be impossible to launch a surprise attack. They would have to face the enemy's all-out counterattack. Qin Zhao glanced at the wall. The entrance is around there. Everyone looked at Qin Zhao. How do you know? Ham asked. He wasn't doubting Qin Zhao. After all, they were in the same boat. Thus, he believed that Qin Zhao wouldn't lie about this. He felt that Qin Zhao had some way or found some details that they hadn't noticed. Who has an ultraviolet detector? You can look over there. Just then, one of them switched to an ultraviolet detector. Indeed, there were traces of blood at the place Qin Zhao was pointing at. Captain, The team member nodded at Ham. Ham took the ultraviolet detector and saw the blood too. Mr. Chen, you don't seem to have any equipment. How did you see it? Of course I have my ways, Chen Zhao said. In fact, Chen Zhao's small world covered the entrance, so he could see it. Ham made a few tactical gestures. An engineer soldier lurked at the entrance and began to set up the directional explosives. The series of actions was done in one go. The entire process took less than 45 seconds. After the installation was complete, there was a deep sound. The rocks on the wall started peeling off, revealing the metal door inside. Chapter 1990. After that, the engineer soldier took out a high-temperature cutter and cut a hole with a diameter of 50 centimeters on the metal door. You can come over now. The soldier gestured at Ham and the others. Everyone carefully groped their way through the metal door. Inside was a long and narrow passage. There were many circular holes on the walls on both sides of the passage. It looked like the drainage holes of a sewer. There were at least 100 circular holes on both sides of the passage. Ham gave another tactical command, and there were people on guard everywhere. Ham glanced at Chen Zhao in the end. Chen Zhao kept his hands in his pockets, looking like he was taking a leisurely stroll. Mr. Chen, we're already inside the enemy's building. Shouldn't you be on guard? I have my own plans. You don't have to worry. Ham's expression didn't change, but he had already sentenced Chen Zhao to death in his mind. Suddenly, a crashing sound came from the circular tunnel. The circular tunnel was like a microphone. It could gather sound. Therefore, everyone heard it very clearly. Ham shone a searchlight into the tunnel. It seemed to be a black wave. But when he looked closer, the wave seemed to be solid. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The closer they got, the more obvious the sound became. That black wave wasn't liquid at all. It was simply countless rats. Let's go, let's go. Ham's face turned pale with fright as he quickly ordered. At the same time, he threw a grenade into the tunnel. Everyone ran forward desperately. There was a loud sound behind them and an explosion shot out from the tunnel. There were also some roasted rats. But one grenade clearly couldn't kill all the rats. Soon, the rats in the tunnel surged out like a tide. Denzel, switch to a flamethrower. You take the rear, Ham ordered. Without any hesitation, Denzel switched his weapon as he ran. In 10 seconds, he finished switching. Then he stopped and turned. Whoosh! The flamethrower was very effective against rats. It was like one man holding the pass against 10,000 enemies. Even if the rats charged through the flames, they would turn into fire rats. After a few more steps, there was no sound. Denzel fired the flamethrower and retreated. The rats weren't stupid. At least, they were much smarter than regular rats. They no longer charged blindly into the sea of fire. Instead, they circled around the flames and broke through from the walls or ceilings where the temperature was lower. It did not take long for Denzel to become too busy. Rats were trying to break out of the encirclement from the left, right, and the ceiling. The rats pounced on Denzel's body. In the beginning, there were only 1 or 2 rats. They did not even tear through Denzel's combat uniform. Yet they were filled with a wild aura. When Denzel swatted the rats off his body, more of them would jump on him. Damn bastard. Denzel had been pinching the mouse. He noticed that there was a spore on the mouse's body. But the old man didn't have time to think. His neck was bitten. Denzel was in so much pain that he almost dropped the flamethrower. By then, half of Denzel's body had been covered by the rats. The rats were biting and tearing at Denzel furiously. Denzel took 2 steps forward. However, his body felt so heavy that he could not even stand steadily. At this time, even more rats were pouncing on him. Rumble, with a loud bang, the huge impact and the leaking fuel ignited the tunnel. The rats' path forward was completely blocked. Ham's face was green. They had just started and he had already lost a subordinate. A few rats passed through the flames and continued charging at the group. Chen Zhao picked up a rat. Although it had been caught, it was still as ferocious as before. Chen Zhao observed the rat. It was larger than a regular rat and there was a spore in its abdomen. Chen Zhao was familiar with these spores. Is this what we're dealing with? Ham stomped on a rat, disgust written all over his face. "This is just the appetizer," Qin Zhao said calmly. At the same time, he removed the spores on the rat. He picked up the spores with his fingertip. "These spores will parasitize most creatures, including humans. I hope you won't be parasitized by them. They will directly invade the host's brain and turn your body into a monster." The spores wriggled on Qin Zhao's fingertip. Thin tentacles grew out of the spores, as if they wanted to drill into Qin Zhao's skin and root in. Everyone felt their scalps go numb. If you encounter a large parasitic host, if you can't completely destroy the body of the parasitic host, you can directly attack the spores. Destroying the spores is equivalent to directly killing them. Of course, some monsters have more than one parasitic spores on their bodies, maybe more, and the spores will hide in some hidden places. Ham stared at Qin Zhao. "Mr. Qin, you look very familiar." "Of course. I've encountered this before. Are there any techniques to deal with these monsters?" "There are no other techniques. The only thing you can rely on is powerful firepower." Qin Zhao shrugged. "Also, if you encounter some dust-filled areas, don't go in. These spores can only survive in a type of dust with paralyzing toxins before they have a host." "We encountered them? Mr. Qin, do you want to separate from us?" Ham stared at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao glanced at Ham and then at the soldiers behind him. "From the moment we entered here, at least one of you has pointed a gun at me whether we walk or run, so I think it's better for us to split up. Otherwise, we might have to fight before the mission is completed. Am I right, Mr. Major?" Ham's eyes sparkled. Qin Zhao seemed to be very experienced in dealing with the monsters here. The current situation was unclear, so Qin Zhao following the team was undoubtedly the best choice. However, they were like fire and water and knew each other very well. Ham already regretted his rash decision earlier. Now, the two sides were like fire and water. Qin Zhao's words made their relationship even clearer. There was no need to hide anymore. Just then, a soldier suddenly raised his light machine gun and pointed at Qin Zhao. "If you want to leave, leave your life behind." The soldier clearly hated Qin Zhao to the max. Ham raised an eyebrow. He didn't think that his subordinate would attack without his orders. Attacking now was undoubtedly the most unwise choice. But he couldn't stop his subordinate from taking revenge. Suddenly, Qin Zhao flicked his finger. The spores on his finger shot into the soldier's mouth. Cough, cough. The soldier clutched his neck and coughed violently. "The spores are very fast. He'll mutate soon. Good luck." Qin Zhao turned around and left calmly. "Mike, how are you?" Ham hurriedly helped Mike up. "I feel terrible. There's something in my stomach." Mike tore at his clothes. Chapter 1991. Suddenly, Ham took a few steps back, and so did his teammates. Mike's face was covered in black veins and his body gave off a strong rotten smell. Mike vomited heavily. His body was going through a drastic change. "My hand, it's so painful. This feeling is too wonderful." Everyone watched as Mike, who'd been kneeling on the ground, stood up again. Mike, who'd been 1.8 meters tall before, had now grown to 2 meters. Moreover, it continued to grow taller until it was nearly 3 meters tall, and its body had also expanded by several times. Mike suddenly smashed his hand at Ham. Ham caught it and took a step back. However, Mike's fist was already in Ham's hand. Ham raised the gun in his right hand and pointed it at Mike's head. "I'm sorry, Mike." "It's okay." Bang. Mike's head was smashed, but his body didn't fall. He still stood there. The next moment, the headless body punched Ham's chest and he was sent flying. However, the moment Ham was sent flying, he fired again. Bang, bang, bang. The tumor in the headless body's chest was shot and it fell backward. Ham exhaled and stood up again. "Captain, are you okay?" "I'm fine." Ham patted his chest. "He's so strong." "Captain, you're more like a monster." Ham looked into the depths of the tunnel. Qin Zhao had already disappeared. "Let's go. If we meet that person again, he'll be our enemy." Ham finally made up his mind. No matter how they tried to fix their relationship now, they couldn't turn enemies into friends anymore. They would only be enemies. The team walked forward for a while. Finally, it wasn't a straight path anymore. This was an underground garden built with unknown materials. The interior ceiling of the garden was spherical, and the whole structure was composed of pieces of reflective panels. The top of the garden was a high-heat light source system used to simulate the spectrum and brightness of sunlight. Then, the reflective panels would reflect the strong light onto the plants below. There was also an automatic spraying system that would spray every few minutes. There were many purple flowers in the garden. They were tender and beautiful. Most of them had fists and bloomed brilliantly. No one could recognize the species of the flowers. Everyone carefully walked along the path of the garden, even though this place was filled with vitality and lush greenery. But no one dared to be careless. They clearly understood that the more beautiful they were, the more dangerous they were. Look over there. One of the team members pointed at a rotten arm protruding from the soil under a purple flower tree not far away. The bulge under the soil looked like a person, and the main stem of the purple flower was rooted in the human form. A few of the team members covered their mouths and retched, their stomachs churning uncontrollably. These purple flowers use human corpses as nutrients. Ham's expression was cold. That's right. At this moment, a voice suddenly rang out. Everyone looked up and saw a person standing on the top of the wall. That person was wearing a white work uniform. He should be one of the researchers here, or maybe he was the mastermind behind the scenes. Who are you? Let me introduce myself. I'm Depler, the person in charge here. Captain Depler, Latino, 68 years old this year, a biogeneticist. 30 years ago, he was arrested for carrying out forbidden experiments and stealing corpses. He served 21 years in prison, Denzel said. You know him? Ham asked in surprise. I was once in charge of chasing after him. However, that mission ended in failure. Back then, I was just a new recruit, Denzel said. Did he do anything else after being released from prison? The same old problem. Carrying out dangerous forbidden experiments, stealing corpses, murder and terrorist attacks. More accurately, massacres. He set up a laboratory in a small town near the US-Mexico border and released a poisonous gas into the town, causing over 20 people to die from the deadly virus. In the process of chasing after him, he caused the death of another 12 soldiers. After that, he disappeared without a trace. I'm glad there are still people who know me, Depler said loudly. He doesn't look like he's 68 years old. He looks like he's 40 years old at most. He looks even younger than a few years ago, Denzel said. Everyone revealed puzzled looks. Truth be told, they did not believe it either. The man standing at the top was really 68 years old. Depler was wearing glasses. His face had some unshaven stubble and his hair was thick. Although he was only wearing a white coat, he still looked very elegant. It was hard to imagine that he was an evil scientist who had committed countless crimes. I am indeed Depler. This is all thanks to my many years of research. Now, my research is approaching perfection. You will be fortunate enough to be the first to benefit, Depler said with a smile. At that moment, Ham suddenly raised his gun and fired at Depler, who was tens of meters away. Bang! A sticky tentacle reached out from under Depler's white coat and blocked Ham's bullet. Everyone swallowed a mouthful of saliva. What was that? The end of the tentacle slowly opened up, revealing a mouth that looked like a petal. Next, the mouth spat out and the bullet flew back at Ham. Ham's cheek was cut by his own bullet. More tentacles slowly extended out from Depler's back. Do you see? Do you see that? In the future, humans will have many more tentacles. This way, they can carry out more work and live more conveniently. They have stronger cell structures. A tentacle can lift up to 3 tons, and its maximum length can reach 5 meters. Work that could only be done by machines in the past can now be done with tentacles. Moreover, they are directly connected to human sensory nerves, and their reaction speed is faster than hands and feet. They can even block bullets. This is the inevitable process of human evolution. Although everyone was shocked, they were still relatively clear-headed. They would not be bewitched by Depler's words. Evolution? You call this evolution? Ham sneered. This time, he put away his pistol and took out an automatic rifle from behind his back. You can block bullets from a pistol. I wonder if you can block bullets from an automatic rifle? Depler looked at the group of people pointing their machine guns at him, and a smile appeared on his face. Don't worry, I'm not the one you need to face now. There are still many failures in my garden. They are the enemies you need to face first. After saying that, Depler turned and entered the tunnel. The tunnel was once again blocked by the reflector. At that moment, a corpse stood up shakily in the garden. This is Resident Evil, right? Chapter 1992. The corpses were covered by the roots of the purple flowers. Some corpses were on their bodies, while others had purple flowers on their heads or backs. It seemed that the roots had given them the power to stand up again. Everyone switched to flamethrowers. The situation didn't look good, but Ham was unusually calm. The moment the flamethrower was fired, all the corpses were engulfed. But the flames died out faster than expected. At this time, the living corpses did not fall. Their broken bodies seemed to be flowing with red flames. The flowers on their bodies turned from purple to red. A corpse suddenly opened its mouth and spat out flames at everyone. Damn! Everyone dodged. They absorbed energy and changed their element through it. Chen Zhao looked at the corpses in the garden quietly. They were more agile and active than before. It was probably because they could only photosynthesize after absorbing ultraviolet. Therefore, the flowers didn't give the corpses enough vitality, which was why they were weak. Then Ham and the others thought they were smart and used flames to attack the flowers and corpses. This made the corpses even harder to deal with. Of course, if it were Qin Zhao, he would probably do the same. After all, plants were restrained by flames. Normal people would think this way. But Qin Zhao also noticed that some corpses and symbiotic flowers were still burned. This meant that the upper limit of their energy absorption wasn't high. Chen Zhao caught a corpse and realized that the upper limit was indeed very low. This was understandable. Their bodies were already broken and couldn't absorb too much energy. They also couldn't be preserved for long. But the relationship between the host and the parasite was quite special. First, the symbiotic flower lived in the host's body. When it grew to a certain stage, it would give energy back to the host. This pattern could be maintained until the corpses were completely decayed. The symbiotic flower probably secreted some substance that could slow down the process. However, the decay was still an irreversible process. The symbiotic flower would lose its host sooner or later. Just then, Chen Zhao heard a pained shriek. A soldier was pounced on by a corpse and then burned to death by the fire it spat. But Ham quickly stabilized the situation. It had to be said that Ham's personal ability and command skills were more than a level higher than the other soldiers. Apart from being caught off guard at the beginning, they didn't give them too much trouble. Even if the zombies were faster and more agile, even if they had the ability to breathe fire. Even though their numbers far outnumbered the soldiers. However, in the face of well-trained soldiers and excellent equipment, they still couldn't pose much of a threat. Soon, all the living corpses in the garden were cleared. Ham and the others were still on guard as they carefully walked down the aisle. Who knew if a few more living corpses would rise from the soil? Everyone let out a long sigh of relief after passing through the passage. Be careful, no one knows what else is here. But at that moment, the ground beneath their feet suddenly collapsed. Everyone slid down the trap beneath their feet. Everyone fell onto a sandy ground. Fortunately, there was sand below them. Otherwise, this fall would have made them lose their fighting strength. Ham and the others got up and looked at everyone. Are you all okay? I'm fine. I'm fine. Everyone got up and began to observe their surroundings. However, they found themselves in a field the size of a football field, and the bottom was covered with fine sand. It was surrounded by a wall, and there were many seats on the high platform behind the wall. It was like a coliseum down there. On the seats beside it, there were more than 10 researchers in white coats sitting or standing in the field. Unless the people in the center used a sniper rifle, they wouldn't be able to attack the researchers. Captain, what should we do now? Just then, the sand in the distance suddenly rose up. Something's in the sand. Ham's expression changed. The thing under the sand was rapidly approaching them. However, the weapons in their hands couldn't penetrate the sand at all, let alone attack the thing under the ground. Just as the sand was flying in front of everyone, a huge mouth drilled out of the sand and bit down on one of the soldiers. Ham was shocked. The monster had crawled out right beside him. If the monster did not choose his teammates but chose him instead, he would have become its food. It was a monster that looked like a snake, but its head was more like a viper's. There were many spores all over the back of the snake monster. Boom! The soldier was also very decisive. Without hesitation, he pulled the grenade and self-destructed. The bloody mouth was immediately blown to pieces. The explosives and flamethrower that the soldier carried also detonated, completely igniting the snake monster's body. The snake monster's burning body kept rolling on the ground. Just then, the other snake monsters crawled out of the sand. They crazily bit their own kind that had been ignited. Fire at will and kill them. Hurry, we can't give them a chance to crawl back into the sand. Thud, 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 boom, boom. One had to admit that Ham's reaction was extremely fast. He just escaped from the gates of hell, but he forced himself to calm down with his strong heart. Then he stabilized the situation and fought back against the snake monsters. When the snake-shaped monsters were attacked by Ham and the others, some of them charged towards them. Others wanted to crawl back into the ground. The researchers in the audience were taking notes. Chen Zhao was also wearing a white coat and sitting on the other side. Looking at the battle, these snake-like monsters' greatest advantage was hiding in the sand. Once they left the sand, they were much less of a threat. One had to admit that Ham's ability to seize opportunities was too strong. In such a short and dangerous situation, he could actually grasp the snake monster's weakness and his own advantage. Who's that guy sitting opposite? I've never seen him before. Is he new? The lab hasn't had any newcomers in the past 3 months. Because of the Colosseum, the researchers could not see Chen Zhao's face clearly. Forget it. Let's continue recording data. After being parasitized by the evolution spores, these vipers' bodies become huge, but their intelligence drops significantly. That's normal. Some creatures' intelligence increases after being parasitized, but their bodies don't change much. This means that the evolution spores redistribute the body's functions and energy. Divine King of the 9 Heavens. Chapter 1993. Frowning, Ella Gonzalez stared at Chen Zhao from afar. That figure looked somewhat familiar, but she couldn't remember. Where had she seen him before? It seemed like he really was a colleague from the lab. Chen Zhao had seen Ella Gonzalez for a long time. Chen Zhao really didn't realize that this woman was also a disaster. By now, the battle below was coming to an end. Ham had lost 2 more people. The mutated vipers were all killed too. Ham realized that the flamethrower was very effective here. Snakes were very sensitive to heat sources. As long as the flamethrower was turned on, the mutated viper would jump in front of it. Then it would burn itself to death. To be honest, even Chen Zhao thought that these mutated monsters were a joke. They weren't even as good as the living corpses in the garden. Chen Zhao shook his head. This kind of battle was really boring. Let's go out and see if there's anything interesting here. Doppler watched the battle on the monitor. Ham had already defeated the mutated viper, but then the second group of monsters appeared. Taking advantage of this gap, Doppler's eyes caught a glimpse of a person appearing on another monitor. Who's the person in the warehouse in Area S? I've already locked it down. Apart from me, no one can go in. Who let him in? Doppler frowned. Where are the guards in Area S? Sir, I'll ask for you now, Doppler's assistant said. Throw those guards into the flower fertilizer, or throw them into the spore culture tank. The assistant used the communicator to contact the guards in Area S, but there was no reply. Sir, the guards in Area S didn't reply. Something must have happened there. Doppler's expression changed drastically. He immediately ran to the monitor and pulled up the surveillance footage along the entrance of the warehouse. The 2 of them saw from the surveillance camera that all the guards along the corridor leading to the warehouse entrance in Area S had fallen to the ground. How can this be? There are so many people. How come there's no alarm when someone intrudes? Damn it, catch him. Depler shouted hurriedly. Hurry, we can't let him mess around inside. As Depler spoke, he saw Qinzhao grab a stick and smash it at a container. Clang! The container broke and a monster soaking in it fell to the ground. Chen Zhao kicked it. It was still alive. Chen Zhao ran to the second container and smashed it. The monster in the container was also alive. Chen Zhao was about to smash the third container when the speaker in the room sounded. Stop! Hurry up and stop. These monsters can't be released. They will kill everyone here. Hearing this, Chen Zhao no longer hesitated. He smashed the third container heavily with the rod in his hand. Hurry up and stop him. Hurry up and stop him. Depler was really anxious now. He had no idea when this intruder had appeared. Previously, he thought that Ham's group was the only intruder, but he didn't expect another one to appear out of nowhere. Chen Zhao had smashed all 20 containers in the warehouse in Zonus. Chen Zhao looked back. Some monsters had already woken up. He didn't care about the mess and left in a carefree manner. Just as he reached the door, he heard footsteps in front of him. When Chen Zhao returned to the warehouse, the people in front had already charged in with weapons. But they didn't see Chen Zhao. Instead, a monster charged toward them. What's happening outside? The researchers in the Colosseum heard the intense gunshots outside. They couldn't help but look back. Ella Gonzalez was wearing a headset. Her colleagues' voices could be heard through it. Ella Gonzalez's expression changed drastically. Oh no, let's go. Leave this place. What's happening? All the monsters in Zone S have been released. Everyone's expression changed drastically. No one cared about the battle in the Colosseum anymore. Everyone hurried to escape. But as soon as they reached the exit, they were blocked by a half-human, half-snake monster. This monster was obviously designed to imitate the Medusa of Greek mythology. However, her size and appearance were more twisted and she didn't have the ability to turn into stone. There were dozens of finger-thick snakes on her head. She grabbed a researcher and tore at his flesh crazily. This way was blocked. Ella Gonzalez and the other reacted quickly and turned back to the audience. They planned to escape through the other tunnel. Just then, they heard their colleagues' screams. Ella Gonzalez looked back and saw that Medusa had already charged out of the tunnel. Seeing that Medusa had already caught up to them, Ella Gonzalez pushed her colleagues back and he fell to the ground. When Ella Gonzalez ran over, she heard her colleagues' pitiful cries. Medusa bit the researcher a few times, then turned her gaze to Ella Gonzalez. But just then, Medusa saw the sand below. Ham and his team members were in a fierce battle with a few mutated giant wolves. Medusa immediately changed direction and jumped down from the audience, pouncing at a wolf. Her tail was thick and powerful, instantly strangling a giant wolf to death. The other giant wolves all changed their targets and attacked Medusa. What's going on? Ham and the others were dumbfounded. Wasn't this monster that looked like Medusa in cahoots with those giant wolves? Captain, what's going on? I don't know. Let them kill each other. Let's go. Ham looked around and saw that there was a sealed entrance at the edge of the Colosseum. Everyone carefully retreated. But Medusa and the wolves clearly had no time to care about Ham and the others. Ham and the others used a bomb to blow open the sealed entrance. After a few steps, they saw corpses everywhere. Most of the corpses were badly mutilated from being bitten by something. What the hell is going on? It's very likely that the monsters here have gone out of control. Just like Resident Evil? The place had completely fallen into chaos. The battle between humans and monsters, monsters against monsters, was constantly happening here. Of course, there were also battles between humans. Ham was very shrewd. He would always appear at the right time and clean up the mess. It didn't matter if they were humans or monsters. The weapons in their hands could also kill monsters more efficiently. But even they couldn't be dealt with by just anyone. Very soon they ran into trouble. They broke into a very large room covered in spider webs. There were more than a dozen researchers hanging on the spider webs. And in the middle of the spider webs, there was a half-human, half-spider monster. Chapter 1994. What Ella Gonzalez saw was carnage and chaos. Everything was out of order. Ella Gonzalez pushed open a room door and quickly closed it. This was the surveillance room, but there was another person in it. The person was leaning back on a swivel chair with one leg on the control panel, watching the bloody slaughter on the screen. Ella Gonzalez frowned and took a step forward. "It's you." Ella Gonzalez was really frightened. She subconsciously extended the tentacle she'd hidden in her white coat. Chen Zhao turned his head. He looked at Ella Gonzalez and then at the aggressive tentacle. "Miss Ella, you're so professional. If I didn't come here, would you have arranged a schedule for me?" Chen Zhao more or less understood now. Where did these people get so many experimental materials? They were all tricked by tour guides. What could be more convenient than a tour guide? He could even earn some extra money. Ella Gonzalez's expression was cold. "Who are you?" Since Chen Zhao had come here, he definitely wasn't an ordinary person. Chen Zhao raised his head and thought seriously. "How should I put it? I seem to be a troublemaker now." Chen Zhao felt that he really hadn't done anything serious after coming here. In terms of killing enemies, he hadn't really killed many monsters. So he just wandered around and caused trouble. After leaving Area S, he went to their cafeteria. Speaking of which, the chef here was really good. If he hadn't died so early, Chen Zhao would have taken him out. The most important thing to do was to kill the monster that ate Chef and take revenge for him. "Those monsters outside were released by you?" "You can't say that. That's not releasing," Chen Zhao said seriously. "Also, put away that tentacle of yours. It'll be good for everyone." Chen Zhao said with a serious expression. "Do you know what the consequences of your actions will be?" "I do. Look, it's so fun." Chen Zhao pointed at the screen. All the surveillance screens were filled with bloody scenes. "You call this fun? What else? I thought you'd like it. After all, both of you seem to be doing the same thing. But are you starting to feel uncomfortable now that your identities have been swapped? You will die here too." "No, I won't die here." Chen Zhao suddenly noticed that Deppler was fighting with a monster in one of the surveillance images. "Is that Deppler your boss? He looks really strong." "All the monsters in Area S were sent in by him," Ella Gonzalez said. Although the monster fighting Deppler couldn't be recognized in its original form, it could speak the human language in authentic American English. There was a deep entanglement between the two. If it was made into an American TV series, it would have at least 5 seasons. The monster used to be a researcher called Felsic. According to them, he was a colleague of Deppler and had the same interests and ambitions. Even their personalities were about the same. In any case, they were the kind of people who were not liked and had done many illegal things. Later, Deppler went to prison and stayed there obediently for 21 years. When he came out, he realized that his research had been taken by this like-minded person. However, Deppler endured the humiliation and acted like nothing had happened. He became Felsic's assistant. He also took away Felsic's research and power bit by bit. Of course, the final reason for the conflict was that Felsic's experiment on himself had failed. Deppler finally activated his early preparations. Because Felsic had lost his human form, his subordinates who had been on his side completely switched sides. Felsic was also a waste product, soaked in formalin and anesthetics for several years. When the two met, it was like old and new hatred, like firewood meeting fire. As they fought, they criticized each other's various bad deeds. In conclusion, there were no good people on either side. Both sides were evenly matched. Neither could do anything to the other. "Felsic, it's not good for either of us to keep fighting like this. How about we both take a step back? I'll give you freedom and let you leave." "Deppler, do you think I'm stupid? If I leave now, I'll be sent directly to the zoo. Why don't you and I temporarily put aside our grudges and suppress this riot together? You can also continue to stay here." "This place belongs to me. It belongs to me." Felsic raged. "Saying this now is meaningless. I promise that as long as we suppress this riot, you can be the adjutant here. Your power will be second only to mine." Felsic's brain was racing. While he was considering the pros and cons, he was also considering whether Deppler would keep his promise. I know what you're worried about. Depler saw that Fei Siki seemed to be moved, and immediately pressed on. Ever since I lost you, my research has become more and more difficult to progress. Only now do I understand that we are the best partners in research. If I want to continue my research, you and I are both indispensable. Felsik obviously wouldn't believe Depler's words so easily. He'd already been tricked once, and that time, he'd lost everything. This time, he wouldn't be tricked so easily. Think about our ambitions in university. Think about our ideals. Think about our pursuits. No one understands you better than I do. Similarly, no one understands me better than you do. Depler continued, and you can't return to normal society like this. You can't do it now. Even if you really could kill me, where could you go? You won't be able to control this research base. One had to admit that Depler's words did make sense. But Depler's personality still made him retreat. Hey hey! At that moment, the loudspeaker above their heads rang out. If you two want to fight, then fight properly. Don't shoot your mouths off. Think about it, someone who treats you like trash and soaks you in formalin, why would he share power with you? After the riot, do you really think he'll let you go? Even if he accepts you, will the researchers in this research base accept you? Maybe you'll just return to the lab and become their lab rat. Your only chance now is to kill the person in front of you. Kill everyone here. Damn you. Depler gritted his teeth. For you? Felsik asked loudly, confused. I'm the one who released you from the container. I'm here to save you. Chapter 1995. I hate being ordered around and dominated by others. Fei Si-chi gritted his teeth, and a creaking sound came out of his mouth. Sometimes, you should just accept arrangements, Qin Zhao said. It's good for you. He's hiding in the control room, Depler said. Clearly, since Qin Zhao knew that they were fighting, he must have seen it through the images in the control room. Fiske turned his head and glanced at Depler. He was hesitating whether he should go find Qin Zhao first or fight Depler first. Just like I said before, I can accept you again. He is the main culprit behind this chaos. Kill him, and you can obtain what you lost in the past. Fei Si knew that Depler couldn't be trusted, but he also knew that he didn't have many choices. Of course, he felt that he could just suppress the chaos here first and then kill Depler. Ella Gonzalez looked at Qin Zhao. She was hesitating whether to attack him or not. She'd also been modified, but she still wasn't a battle type. She was a researcher, but Qin Zhao seemed to be strong. Just then the wall was smashed through. A furry monster charged in. It had the fangs of a crocodile, the compound eyes of a dragonfly, the body of a bear, and the claws of a wolf. Qin Zhao jumped lightly and landed on the monster's head. Then he jumped down to the hole in the wall. Miss Ella, play with it slowly. I'm leaving now. Ella Gonzalez's face paled in fear. He looked at the monster that was pieced together in front of him. Test subject number 12 was nicknamed the Beast. But Beast was a very special test subject. The other test subjects were either modified or mutated. On the other hand, wild beasts were truly pieced together. It used the genes of various beasts to create parts or organs of beast and then piece them together. Finally, through the parasitism of evolutionary spores, the monster was activated. It had the racial advantages of various creatures. Some species had hidden talents. For example, the power of an ant was hidden in its body. It could be said that it was one of the most dangerous test subjects. Ella Gonzalez had seen Beast a few times, but it was always through the container. The wild beasts had existed longer than she had been in this research base. In order to suppress the wild beasts, they were constantly soaked in anesthetics and had to be injected with strong tranquilizers regularly. After soaking for a few years, the beast became as thin as a stick. However, after it broke free, it quickly recovered its stamina by devouring the researchers and other monsters. Its mouth could bite through an iron pillar with a diameter of 15 centimeters. Ella Gonzalez felt like she was going to die. But just then, the beast chose to chase after Qin Zhao. Clearly, it was very unhappy that Qin Zhao had stepped on its head when he was running. Or maybe it thought that old flesh tasted better. Chen Zhao was surprised that the beast would chase after him. The beast looked cruel, bloodthirsty, and irrational. In reality, there was still a certain level of thinking. At least it remembers hatred. And this kind of emotion was very pure. When it bore a grudge against a person, it would even abandon its prey or food right in front of it. But Chen Zhao wasn't that easy to catch. In the blink of an eye, the beast had lost sight of him. However, it had an amazing sense of smell. All of its characteristics were the most powerful in nature. Of course, it was as the saying went. Mutation and evolution were two different things. This kind of assembled monster had the same flaw. It was instability. Evolutionary spores couldn't really make a species evolve, nor could they completely fuse the genes of a few completely different species. It wasn't even a living thing. It was just an organ that had been glued together. Chen Zhao wandered around. Suddenly he saw a tunnel. There was a sign at the entrance, Dustless Lab. The outside world was in chaos, but the inside world was still peaceful. Many guards stood at the entrance to prevent the monsters from entering. They even set up a high-voltage electric fence to block the entrance. Chen Zhao killed all the guards. Not a single one was left. Then he walked into the Dustless Lab. Chen Zhao saw many isolation rooms. Some of the glass rooms contained creatures that had just completed experiments. The other room was a breeding room, which was used to cultivate evolution spores. There were still researchers working in those rooms. It was as if the bloody battlefield outside had nothing to do with them. Chen Zhao had pretty much seen the entire Dustless Lab, but he only had a rough look. They seemed to have extracted the essence of some kind of plant. Then, the zombie spores from the Amazon rainforest were put into the plant essence to be cultivated. Then, the zombie spores would undergo a few more steps of mutation and cultivation, finally turning into evolutionary spores. But to Chen Zhao, they were more like enhanced zombie spores than evolutionary spores. In the Amazon rainforest, the real zombie spores only attached themselves to the insects and sucked the nutrients from the insects. After killing the insects, they would find new hosts. They repeated the same process over and over again. They didn't have the ability to make other species evolve or mutate. Chen Zhao opened the lab where the plant essence was extracted. He could vaguely feel that the plant had some magic. When the researcher in the lab saw Chen Zhao come in, he immediately started cursing. "Who let you in? And why aren't you wearing the dustless suit? Outsiders can't come in. No matter what reason you have, get out." Chen Zhao ignored the researcher's scolding and continued to do whatever he wanted in the lab. Seeing Chen Zhao's dirty hands, the researcher walked up to stop him. Chen Zhao casually waved his hand and the researcher was thrown out, breaking the glass. Chen Zhao picked up the plants. Unfortunately, he couldn't recognize their origin. He could only feel a thin magic power from them. Chen Zhao put them all away. He would find someone to identify them later and see if he could find their origin. Chen Zhao continued walking. Suddenly, he saw a metal door embedded into the wall. The metal door didn't look like a product of this era. It seemed more like some ancient civilization had embedded it into the wall. Chen Zhao came to the metal door and broke it off from the wall. Then, he put it back into his spatial ring. This was Chen Zhao's habit. If he didn't know, didn't recognize, or felt that something was valuable, he would put it away first and evaluate it in the future. Chapter 1996. Just then, the Dustless Lab, which had lost its outer defense line, was invaded by the twisted monsters. The Dustless Lab was also the most important place in Sarah's lab. There were a lot of controls for frozen experiments. As the controls were destroyed, a large number of frozen experiments were released. If the warehouse in Area S contained uncontrollable and dangerous experimental bodies, then the experimental bodies frozen and sealed in ice in the Dustless laboratory were large in quantity and basically formed standardized experimental bodies. They were controllable, which was why they were mass-produced. But the biggest problem was that they didn't defrost normally. The researchers and Doppler didn't have time to install control chips on them before they were activated. Their defrosting further increased the chaos in the lab. Most of the researchers and guards here had been modified, so they had a certain amount of combat power. Therefore, they possessed a certain amount of combat power. However, the enemies they faced were not conventional enemies. They were weapons made by the researchers themselves. Ella Gonzalez escaped in a sorry state. But she was lucky. At least she hadn't encountered a large number of experiments or those she couldn't handle. Most of them were scattered individual experimental bodies. The most dangerous one was in the surveillance room. Experiment number 12, Beast, had broken into the room. But this time, Beast had changed directions and chased after Qinzhao. She was lucky enough to escape from the Beast's claws. Now, she only wanted to escape this place and Sarah's lab. This place was completely out of control. Even Doppler couldn't suppress the chaos here. Just then, a few people suddenly charged out. Ella Gonzalez recognized these people. They were Ham and the others. However, the team that originally had more than a dozen people now only had 7 people left. The moment Ham and the others saw Ella, they immediately pointed their guns at her. "Don't kill me! Don't kill me! I can get you out of here!" Ella screamed. "Don't shoot first," Ham ordered immediately. "I was forced. I was caught by Doppler to conduct those terrifying experiments. I'm innocent." Ella Gonzalez cried out in terror. "I just want to escape. I know a way that leads to the outside." By now, Ham and the others were no longer willing to continue their mission in this chaotic hell of flesh and blood. They also wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. The level of chaos and the strength of the monsters had exceeded the limits of what they could handle. In fact, they had more or less encountered some monsters in the past. However, the monsters they had encountered in the past were definitely not as large as the one in Sarah's laboratory. In the past, a team might only need to kill 1 or 2 of them. They weren't like these monsters that gathered in groups. Moreover, the terrain here was too complicated. Some monsters were very cunning and very good at using the terrain to launch sneak attacks. All they regretted now was that they had not brought military-grade explosives. A laboratory of this scale could only be destroyed by military-grade explosives, as well as everything else in here. At this moment, all the speakers in the entire laboratory rang out at the same time. "Warning! The self-destruct device has been activated and will detonate within an hour. All personnel, please evacuate immediately." What? How could this be? Is this red button a self-destruct device? Chen Zhao rubbed his chin. That saves me a lot of trouble. Chen Zhao was suddenly in a good mood. A self-destruct device had clearly solved a lot of problems. However, Chen Zhao believed that not everyone would die in the explosion. Some people definitely had secret passages that could escape outside. So, Chen Zhao had to block the exit and wipe out everything completely. Chen Zhao realized that he was a bit lost. Why did it feel like every path was the same? He walked here and there. Suddenly, he saw a few familiar figures before him. How come it's them? They're not all dead yet. Chen Zhao looked at Ham and the others. Just then, he realized that there was another person among them, Ella Gonzalez. How did they get together? Also, where were they going? It didn't seem like the way they'd come in. Chen Zhao followed Ham and the others. Ella Gonzalez seemed to be leading the way for Ham and the others. But just then, a roar of a beast came from behind Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao turned around and saw that it was the assembled monster. It seemed to be very persistent in chasing Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao frowned. He'd only stepped on its head not long ago. Did it have to chase it all the way? Those who didn't know might think that he had an irreconcilable feud with it. Chen Zhao didn't plan on fighting it. This kind of mindless monster was the most effective weapon of destruction. It didn't know what fear was at all. Chen Zhao sent it flying with a kick. The beast flew backward along the walkway. "Let's go quickly. I hear some uncomfortable sounds." Ella Gonzalez still remembered the roar of the wild beast. She could feel that the beast was nearby. If they encountered it, they wouldn't have a chance of winning. If it weren't for the fact that the beast couldn't be controlled, it would be the perfect product. It had the strength of an ant. It could instantly explode with strength hundreds of times its own. It also had the compound eyes of an insect. It had 360 degrees without any blind spots and could capture moving enemy units more accurately than a normal person. It had the speed of a cheetah. When it exploded with full strength, it could even approach the speed of sound. It could also create venom and spray poison. It also had the ability to sense heat. These were the King Cobra's abilities. It also had an almost indestructible defense. It could withstand the direct impact of an intermediate bomb. Ella Gonzalez didn't even know how to kill it. Fortunately, it didn't have any intelligence. Otherwise, it might replace humans. So, the wisest choice was to avoid the beast. Are you sure this is the right path? Why do I feel like this road is moving downward? Ham raised his doubts. This path is indeed going down, Ella Gonzalez said. Ella Gonzalez said, this road leads to the direction of the freight elevator. The supplies we need are all lowered by the freight elevator to the bottom, and then transported to the other underground floors, so we can take the freight elevator directly back to the surface. Chapter 1997. When they reached the cargo landing area, it had also become a battlefield. Because it was responsible for the cargo, there was a lot of space. But it was also occupied by monsters. And they were constantly fighting here. And Ella Gonzalez was not the first person to think of this route. Many of the lab staff had thought of this escape route. That was why almost all the people who were still alive came here. There were also some monsters who were rational and wanted to escape as well. Between monsters and monsters, between monsters and humans, between humans and humans, they were all constantly killing each other. The ground was already covered in sticky blood, and broken limbs were everywhere. A small monster less than a third the size of an adult suddenly flashed and appeared in front of Ham. Ham subconsciously lifted his leg to send it flying. But the small monster was surprisingly agile. Its figure flashed again, and it dodged Ham's kick. At the same time, it jumped on Ham's body and clawed at Ham's face. Ham's face was left with a shocking claw mark that ran across his entire face. Ham reached out to grab the small monster and squeezed it hard. The small monster was crushed to death. Actually, if the humans could trust and cooperate with each other, they would have a chance to escape. Although the cargo elevator could not take everyone up at once, it could still be divided into several trips. As long as they killed all the monsters in the way, they could completely escape this underground base that was about to be destroyed in batches. But now, no one trusted anyone. The monsters were even more irrational. If they united, they would definitely be the strongest. But their irrationality was reflected in that they did not distinguish between friend and foe, or rather, they did not think that there were creatures present who could be their companions. They saw everything as enemies, and they did not know how to escape. Of course, they were not completely irrational. They still knew hatred. They could vaguely remember the cruel things that some of them had done to them. Rather than killing, it would be more accurate to say that they were venting. Ella Gonzalez's expression was solemn. Let's kill our way over there. The elevator is there. The elevator stopped at the bottom, but from the elevator to the outside, there were battles and messy corpses everywhere. It was not that no one had tried to get into the elevator first. But before the elevator could rise, they were killed. The elevator door could not close or rise because of the corpses. Suddenly, a piece of sticky flesh fell from above, blocking the way of Ham and the others. And this piece of flesh seemed to be alive, wriggling and merging with the surrounding flesh and corpses. What's this? Test subject number 5, flesh embryo, Ella Gonzalez said. Ella Gonzalez said, the original plan was to create a perfect life by fusing all kinds of genes. However, there was an accident during the experiment, and the perfect life was not born. After cultivating the first flesh and blood, it began to devour all living things and flesh, turning them into a part of its own body. Even the few experimenters present were devoured. Does it have any weaknesses? Does it have any? Ella Gonzalez said, in that experiment, Doppler used electric shocks to make it consume its flesh and blood. In the end, it was only the size of a fist, and then it was sealed in the warehouse in Zonus. I didn't expect it to become so big in this chaos. They did have taser guns, But the power of the taser guns was obviously not enough to pose a threat to the huge flesh in front of them. Can't flames do? It's effective, but not very effective, Ella Gonzalez said. Ella Gonzalez said, almost all the experimental bodies in the laboratory have been tested and modified to withstand high temperatures. The flesh embryo completely blocked the elevator entrance. It was also very aloof and did not take the initiative to attack others. It was more interested in the corpses and flesh all over the ground. Of course, just because it was not aggressive didn't mean it was harmless. If anyone accidentally came into contact with the flesh embryo would directly turn that person into a part of itself. Suddenly, one of the entrances to the cargo center was smashed open. The beast's body flew out of the entrance and smashed into the flesh embryo. The flesh embryo immediately wanted to devour the beast. But the beast reacted very quickly. In an instant, it shattered the sticky flesh and blood on the embryo, carving out a bloody path and regaining freedom. But the beast also instantly hated the flesh embryo. It attacked the flesh embryo in a frenzy. The flesh embryo wriggled and stretched out a hand made of flesh and blood, smashing towards the beast. But the beast managed to block the attack. The wild beast's berserk strength was able to easily block the palm made of flesh that was even larger than its body. It was rare for Doppler and fish to work together. They were both very powerful. Normal people or monsters weren't their match at all. Chen Zhao sat on the platform, enjoying the chaos. Suddenly, a voice rang in Chen Zhao's ears. "You look very relaxed." Chen Zhao turned his head and realized that it was a feline, but it was standing. It was taller than a human, but its limbs and habits looked more like a human's. "Were you originally human?" Chen Zhao looked at the tall feline curiously. "I'm not sure. I'm a combination of human and cat genes. I also inherited their memories." With that, the feline flashed its claws. "But my hatred for this place is the same. Your enemies are all down there." "I'm not from here," Chen Zhao said. "I'll give you an apple and we won't fight, okay? You're wearing the same clothes as them. Would you believe me if I told you that the white coat isn't mine?" "No." The feline shook its head. "I'm doing this for your own good. You can't beat me." Bang. Suddenly, a bullet shot toward Chen Zhao from the center of the battlefield. Chen Zhao tilted his head slightly and dodged the bullet. Then he looked at the center of the battlefield. Ham's expression was serious as he stared at Chen Zhao coldly. The guy really wasn't dead. Come to think of it, this guy was so strong, it was reasonable for him to be able to survive until now. It's him. He's not dead. Ella Gonzalez was also shocked by the fact that Chen Zhao was still alive. When she saw the beast chasing Chen Zhao earlier, she thought that he was dead for sure. She didn't expect Chen Zhao to still be fine. He was even watching everything as a bystander. Just then, the feline also attacked Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao dodged the attack and casually threw a punch. But the feline also dodged the attack. Its 4 claws clung to the wall and it stared down at Chen Zhao. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.